Welcome one and all, it's time for yet another Warhammer Age of Sigmar tournament report from the TSN Arena. Sold out, a wide variety of armies on display, and the Stormcast Eternals are going to see what we can do against such a varied field. I don't think any faction was represented more than twice in the 24 players that were there. So, let's dive straight in and have a look at my force. There we go. So, 2,000 points, as usual, for Age of Sigmar. And this list is not the killiest Stormcast Eternals list. There's no Annihilators in there. There's no Dragons. There's a limited number of long strikes. But it's quite a wounds-dense list for a Stormcast list. We've got things that have a lot of wounds in there. We've got the Questors that are good value per wound. The Paladors have a lot of wounds in the unit. The Chariot is now quite efficient for wounds as well, now that it's come down in price. And we do have some killing power, but it's elements that need to be brought together, usually. And I'll talk about those as we go through each unit as well. So, first of all, we've got the Knight Judicator, who is the general for no particular reason. And the Knight Judicator is joined in a regiment by the Storm Coven and the Vigilors. Then we've got the Knight Relictor, represented by the Lord Relictor miniature here. At least until I stop running 2 units of Questors, and then one of them can be the Knight Judicator. There he is, and the Knight Relictor is armed with the Beacon of Azir for the once per game auto prayer, and Legendary Tenacity for the get back up again once, probably when he's killed. Then the Knight Relictor is joined by 2 units of Questa Soulsworn, and then the final regiment we have Taunus the Redeemed, who is in there purely because he's a very cheap source of unlocking everything, including Vanguard units. But he's also got some decent rules as well, joined by the Stormstrike Chariot, down to 120 points now, which is very exciting, and the Paladors with Javelins, reinforced unit there, and a small unit of long strikes. So, mostly, it's multiple small sources of damage. Obviously, the Paladors reinforced, they're a big expensive unit, but outside of them, everything else is a small source of damage, like the Knight Judicator, the long strikes, the Soulsworn, the Questa Soulsworn, and the Storm Coven. Both, they don't really do massive damage, any of these units. So, we need elements to combine to get the most out of them. So the plan is, pretty much everything in this army hits on a 3. So you don't want to be using all-out attack constantly, because that's just a waste of command points. So why not bring the Vigilors and try and pick a key enemy unit and get +1 to hit with everything against that. So that seems like a good choice, Vigilors being in there. There's not a huge amount of Rend in the army. The only things that have Rend 2 are actually the Knight Judicator, the Long Strikes, and Taunus the Redeemed. All those attacks are Rend 2. Everything else is just 1, pretty much. There's a little bit of mortal wound output, but not much. So, those are the only Rend 2. So what can we do to help that? Well, we can have the Purple Sun. So hopefully the Purple Sun gets in there, which will help the lack of Rend that the whole army has. And what else have we got to discuss before we move on to the actual games? So, Taunus the Redeemed. We've got a nice close-up of some of the Questors there. If anyone's watching this live, by the way, feel free to drop some comments in and I'll refer to those. 2 units of Questors. Even if Questors weren't a really nice, efficient unit, which I think they are, I'd probably still run them anyway because they look cool and they're quite cheap. Paladors, Chariot. I really like the Chariot model, but I haven't been justified in selecting it in my lists recently because it's been a bit too expensive, but it has come down in points now. And it's come down in points at the same time as Liberators, which is a weird one because the Chariot competes somewhat with Liberators actually in my list building. You're looking for something that has 10 wounds, a 3+ save, and isn't going to do much really on its own. It's just mostly going to hold an area. than it is competing with things like Liberators. It's now 30 points more than them because they've dropped down in points as well. But for this specific list, it does fit in perfectly into the 2,000 points. And it does some things that Liberators don't do, of course. It's got speed, it's got mortal wound on the charge, it's got a really nice power through, which it's going to be able to use fairly often with 10 wounds. You're not often going to come up against an enemy you can't use that against, unless you're facing Sons of Behemat. And just a nice choice, I think. The Storm Coven, obviously, they're mostly going to be deployed on an objective, so I can get 2 casts in there. And their Strike First spell, I'm going to be looking to put that onto the Paladors. And the main strategy of the army is going to be hit and run with the Paladors, and then look for one big combined strike with all my shooting at some point in the game, whenever I feel the time is right to do that. So the Paladors will go in, hopefully with Strike First. Maybe with something like Taunus the Redeemed as well, because he can limit what's coming back at them, because he can put -1 to hit on enemy units that he's in combat with. Leon says, that's a pretty odd list, don't think I've seen the big bow hero since 3rd. He's actually quite hot right now. People are raving about the Night Judicator. And per point, he's pretty comparable to the long strikes in terms of damage output. He's obviously cheaper than them and does a bit less damage. But he can also benefit from things like Guarded Hero, which is a big deal. And he can also buff his own attacks with the dogs as well, which is quite nice. You have to get a bit closer to do that. But they do stick to the enemy units as well, so once you've applied it, you don't have to stay that close necessarily. And yeah, so the Paladors will go in, do their damage, maybe power through to get away from the enemy, back towards the Knight Relictor, and then in the enemy turn, he will then teleport them away to somewhere really safe, because they're so fast, you can put them right in the corner and they'll still be able to charge something in the next turn, because with the run and charge you can move them 20 inches and then still charge something, so that'll keep them safe. And then when the enemy advance out, that's when I'm going to look for the key target, drop down the long strikes, the Night Judicator, maybe get the Storm Covens shooting involved, the Vigilors, just surround all those, put all those around a specific enemy target and fire, try and whittle them down. And then go in with the Paladors or the Chariot to finish things off. The Questors are mostly going to be for locking down areas, because they're obviously not very fast. And I'm going to put them on objectives, mostly. There is a little bit of pressure on them to do some fighting in this list, because outside of the Paladors, nothing else is really a big fighting threat. So the Questors do have to pull their weight a little bit. Let's see. Okay, so into game 1. Creeping Corruption. So, the underdog bonus on this one is pick an objective, or pick 2 objectives, draw a line between them, and then you can either do damage to enemies, or you can add 1 to casting rolls, chanting rolls, and so on with the unit you have there. And the scoring is pretty standard: 5 for 1 objective, 3 for 2, 2 for more. That is kind of the default objective. We've got 6 objectives on the table. We've got pairs in diagonal corners, and then these 2 are not considered a pair. It's weird, in this photo, these 2 objectives here look like a totally different colour. But when I look at the book with my own eyeballs, and when I look at them on the table, they look very similar. Because I think one is very dark, and one's purple and one's blue, but I can't really tell which is which here, because one's darker. And first game is against the filthy, verminous Skaven. So I'm going to pull up that list right now. Let's see here. I just need to get this page to load up nicely. Has Malarkey logged me out? Surely not. That would be outrageous. Ah, there we go. So, pulling up the Skaven list here. We have got, and then I'll tell you my strategy in a moment. And now the website has an error. Well, that's just great, isn't it? During a live stream, creators of Malarkey should be ashamed of themselves. Just refreshing the page here. Leaderboard. Well, this isn't ideal. Maybe if I go on this page, that'll do it. Let me see here. So if I can't tell you the list, I'm just going to be describing them as these guys and those rats. Well, apparently, the lists are not working on Malarkey. And in fact, the leaderboard isn't even visible to me at the moment. And I've confirmed that I am logged in. I can see the leaderboard now, but it's not showing me any of the lists. Isn't that just great? We've got Dave in the chat. And yes, you might not be saying that by the end of this, because I'm not going to know the names of any of these units. So, we have got some big scary rats with guns that actually don't have guns, they actually have drills. And they're starting off somewhere in their Skaven-y rat tunnels. Storm Fiends. John F., welcome. Painting lots of tiny rats. I have a sneaking suspicion I might know what those are for. Ooh, Malarkey is allowing me to re-log in now. So it said I was logged in, but it's telling me to log in again, so maybe that'll let me access the lists now. Wouldn't that be a dream come true? We're now seeing a little spinning circle. So we've got some clan rats. Everyone knows what a clan rat is. Then we've got more clan rats, who are obviously just chaff, screens. We have got the Screaming Bell. We have got rat ogres. Oh, it might actually be letting me look at the lists now. One final try before I give up entirely. There we go. Nope. Not working. So we've got Screaming Bell. We have got the Warcry warband of rats at the back there. And we've got a giant rat as well. And then we've got a couple of these wheelie dudes. It's lucky we've got some rat experts in the chat here. So we've got a Brood Terror. And let's go back to the wide shot and I'll tell you about my strategy for this game then. So you can see we've got a chariot out on an objective on its own. It's only 120 points. Anything that wants to go over there and fight my chariot, I don't mind. It's just going to sit on an objective and that's that. And also, it would be very useful if I could see how many drops each army is, but that doesn't seem likely at the moment. Let's have a look if I can get into my battles on here, because I could actually look at the scores then as well. Let's have a look. Oh, we've got potential here. It might actually let me access my games so I can tell you the scoring round by round. So while that loads, I've got the Storm Coven touching an objective because they want the 2 casts, so that's why they're doing that. Night Judicator starting on the table. The reason that you might want to do that is because if the Night Judicator is set up, you can't throw a dog at the enemy. You can only do that on a turn you were already there. You can't set up and then do that. So you're not going to be quite as good at shooting. Paladors can just be anywhere, miles off to the side, and they can hit pretty much anything in the first turn generally. But the kind of thing I would like to kill, maybe these rats because they're not supported by anything else. And we know what my plan is, just take down something with the Paladors, hit and run tactics with them, and after that, look for opportunities to drop in all the shooting and then go big and try and kill something more significant. So maybe I'm thinking Paladors could be going for something there. Now, would you let my Stormcast Eternals go first against you, which is risky because of the threat range of the Paladors. I've got loads of shooting to drop down, so I've got a lot of stuff that could be right on you in turn 1. Or do you risk letting the Stormcast go second and maybe having a chance to get a double turn with some very strong shooting and some powerful hit and run units that can hit you, get out, and then come back in again? Hopefully none of those are ideal choices. In the sky you can see that I've got all the shooting units and 1 unit of Questors and Taunus the Redeemed. By all the shooting units, of course, I mean not the Night Judicator, but all the others. So 1 unit of questors in the sky means that you can pick a quest-marked objective, which I don't think I've done when this photo was taken. But you need to have 1 on the table to do that, and then they can both benefit from it. So, here are my battle tactics that I've chosen. I've gone for Master the Paths and Restless Energy. So the first parts of those that I want to accomplish are destroy an enemy hero, which is not usually too difficult. Stormcast with teleporting around once the enemy spreads out a bit. And then take an objective off your opponent, which is very easy for Stormcast with all the teleporting and the Paladors with the obscene speed. So the first parts are generally easy. It gets trickier after that. No more friendly units in neutral territory than enemy territory. That is sometimes an easy one with the mobility, and I've got quite a lot of units, so that one quite doable. The last part of that, which is to have units in the corners, not necessarily that easy because you can't always set them up. You can only set up 1 of those units this turn, and am I going to have that many units left at the end by the time we get to the third part of battle tactic? Maybe. And the other one involves controlling all the objectives in enemy territory. That's not too difficult for Stormcast as well, if there's not many objectives in enemy territory because of the teleporting. It depends on their list though, because if someone just camps a giant blob of 40 wounds in there, then maybe I'm not going to be able to do that at all, and then take every objective on the battlefield. Depends on the opponent entirely. If they've got something I can't kill and can't shift, then it's just impossible. And I am going first. So I think I was thrust into going first by my opponent probably here. And you can see the Gnawhole, which has appeared right next to me as well, which I am attacking with the chariot though. And you can see that these grotesque storm fiends have popped out on my turn, which is apparently a thing they can do, which is very mean. I've dropped down some questors straight into the back corner, and I've chosen the back left objective to be quest marked, which is why I've put them up there. And the enemy have then redeployed away from them to stop me charging straight onto it. But anyone that wants to come and deal with them that's powerful enough to take out a unit of questors, it's going to be a significant loss to the main fighting force in the middle. Especially if I can get them onto the 5+ ward objective. The Knight Relictor is hanging out down here with some prayer points built up, and the Knight Judicator is on the objective there. Paladors swarm in, kill 1 unit of clan rats, down to the final rat, kill all of them, and there we go. So I'm not able to power through because I'm not still in combat. But the Paladors, they're not that close to the enemy, and the Skaven don't have a huge amount of speed to get towards me there, and of course I can redeploy away if it's something I don't want to fight. They're not going to be able to bring massive numbers of horrible things towards me, I don't think, in the next turn though. So the Paladors aren't too concerned yet, but we'll see. The other unit of questors is still hanging out down here. So they've both still got their once per game teleports, and we'll see what the enemy can do about this. So I've picked up 15 points in the first round because I took that objective off the enemy. So that's part 1 of a battle tactic accomplished there. Restless Energy. And into turn 1 for the enemy. So we've got what I suspect. That's got to be the Brood Terror then, doesn't it? Leon, the rat expert we've got. Now I would know the names of all these units, but Malarkey is not showing me any of the lists right now. It's being very unresponsive, you might say. Oh, I've just refreshed the page, and it might actually let me look at the lists now. Let's find out. Oh, it is showing me the game, so I can actually look at the scoring as well. And is it going to show me the list? While talking, I've been furiously refreshing the page as well. Let's see if it shows me the list. Because that would be wild, wouldn't it? It would also be very handy for all the other games in this tournament report. Loading up the page. Anyway, you can see that the Skaven, before their charge phase, going to engage the questors there with 2 wheelie things, which I'm not too concerned about. The chariot is actually weirdly kind of safe behind the Gnawhole there. And you can see that these Storm Fiends are heading towards the questors and the Storm Coven here. which wouldn't be ideal if they get in there and do some horrible murdering. The Paladors take a bit of shooting damage there. You can see that 2 of them have dropped already. And the wheelies get into the Questors. Leon says you can always open Age of Index to check the war scrolls on anything. I may have to do that if it doesn't show me the lists, but let's have one more try now that it's all refreshed. There we go, we've got the lists up. Okay, so I can tell you that the Skaven have the Scourge of Gairan Greyseer on Screaming Bell. There is a Master Moulder, Rat Ogres, Scourge of Gairan Brood Terror, Storm Fiends, Plague Pack, Doom Flayers, and 2 lots of Clan Rats. And it's 2 drops, which is why my opponent was able to get me to go first. So, the Storm Fiends get into the Questors. Not interested in tagging the Storm Coven yet. The Storm Coven's fighting stats are actually not bad. It's kind of weird. You think of them as a spellcasting unit, but their shooting and close combat attacks are actually decent as well. So I think the Storm Coven are just a good unit, and I like having them in the list. If I'm not taking any other spellcaster, I think they're definitely going to stick around for a while in my lists. With that Strike First spell, which is a big deal. There's a lot of Strike Last effects in the game at the moment, especially Cruel Boys. And there are usually a lot of Cruel Boys. And with a bit of all-out defense, the Questors do not take much damage at all. And then when they hit back, you can see the Storm Fiends start dropping. So how many were there? There was 5. 2 of them have been killed. So the Questors doing a really good job there. I think I've only suffered 2 wounds so far. And then the remaining 4 Questors up in the top left against the... I assume that is the Doom Flayer. So one of the Doom Flayers still up. Chariot finishes off the Gnawhole this turn. And yeah, so that went very badly for the rats down there. So I'm feeling pretty good at this stage because we've got the Rat Ogres back there, but nothing successfully made a charge into the Paladors this turn. Leon says, I think those Questors got a bit lucky. They definitely did get a bit lucky here, but all-out defense with good saves. And then the Questors' damage output isn't terrible, with 2 damage each, and they have quite a few attacks. So in the first turn, my opponent picks up 8 victory points. No battle tactics. Let's see what the battle tactics are actually for the Skaven here. It is Master the Paths and Scouting Force. So with Scouting Force, you want to get forward and you want to be taking, I think, bits of terrain in enemy territory, that kind of thing. So I'm feeling pretty confident here though, and I'm going to try and hit something else now and try and whittle down other units. The one issue I'm going to have with a lot of these armies is that units come back to life, and only one of my units can. So I'm not actually going to go full on and try and murder a unit outright. For example, the Storm Fiends. There's only 3 of them left. If I just leave them fighting Questors or whittle them down a bit and don't finish them off, they're actually not as scary as if they come back with a fresh unit of 3 somewhere. Into my turn, I get first crack at round 2 after winning the priority, and the Questors in the fight against the Storm Fiend. 1 Questor has dropped, but more Storm Fiends are dead, because you can see the Knight Judicator moved up to do some shooting. Got the Chariot and the Paladors into the Clan Rats and the Screaming Bell. The Paladors, I think, were actually... Let's go back here. So on the wide shot, I think the Paladors made their charge and they were strung out here between these 2 units, because I wanted to put some attacks into the Storm Fiends, but I didn't want to finish them off. So I think that's how they were. Or at least I had the option of doing that, because I moved down in this direction here. The Questors move out of combat, away from this guy, and take a few mortal wounds, but I decided it was worth it to get onto the objective where I have my ward save and bonus to control score and just take the objective. And you can see the Storm Coven is still just hanging out there, doing their spells. I put Finest Hour on the Paladors this turn. and was then able to kill various storm fiends. And who else was here with the clan rats and the screaming bell? Let's go back and have a look a second. So I think you'll notice some Skaven units moving as well on my turn. That is a thing some of them are able to do, because they actually come further down here. Because obviously there's a redeploy, and I think they have some other move ability as well. So we've got into the thick of the action now, taking out quite a few clan rats as well, but still locked in combat with them and not finishing them off. At this stage, I'm thinking the enemy, some of these enemy units are not particularly damaging to me. They don't do big damage, a lot of these Skaven units, because this unit's down to 1, so they're not scary anymore. So ideally, I would just not like to kill them at all and just leave that one alone, but it's not my turn next, so I don't really have the choice. I will have to fight it, unfortunately. And up here, the Questors just hanging out on this objective. I think I've got pretty good board control going on. Let's see what the rats do in their turn 2. So you can see another Questor's gone down. You can see the clan rats have pulled out of combat with the Paladors there. Screaming Bell is staying in. And not much happened in that turn. You can see that the Doomflayer was killed by the Questors up in the top left. And one Storm Fiend is still alive. I think it just has 1 wound left, which is hilarious, because that means a fresh unit can't be brought back yet. And 8 points, so I've got a nice lead built up here, going into my turn 3. So at this stage, what should I be doing? Because I think I'm maybe a little bit too concerned about units coming back to life. And I'm kind of trying to get into a grind where I'm intentionally not killing the enemy, which is a weird thing to be doing, but I am concerned the enemy gain so much mobility if you kill them, because those units of rats that can come back to life, and they can generally pop up, and gnaw holes can appear. They can pop up from gnaw holes, and they can, I think they can be slightly closer to you than most units that pop up as well when there's a gnaw hole involved, I believe. And maybe I'm too concerned about that, and I'm not just going in and killing things when maybe I should be focusing my firepower, because you look, I've got quite spread out around the battlefield here. So Taunus the Redeemed hops down onto this objective. And what I think actually is, let me see here. Master the Paths, is that the one that has killing a hero as the first part of the battle tactic? So I think I'm also being protective of my heroes. That's why Taunus the Redeemed is hiding. I think that's what's going on here. That's the wrong battle tactic. I'm sure someone will let me know. So you can see I cast Strike first onto the Paladors, who retreat out of combat as well, and then come around the other side, because there's other units they would like to get to, but they don't actually roll high enough to reach certain things, like, for example, the Plague Pack, which I think that is there. And again, there's not much going on, but I'm mostly kind of delaying and just scoring points. You can see I'm going around, I've got the objectives, and I'm fairly happy with how it's going. Fairly. The Long Strikes and the Vigilors drop down and put all their firepower into the Brood Terror. Because, really, I don't want that thing coming into the middle of the battlefield and affecting the fight down here. Because it's already not really in my favour. I'm kind of shenaniganing my way to points now, because the actual fight isn't going that well in the middle. You can see the Paladors being whittled down. The Chariot is still holding on in there. That's quite a tough thing to bring down. I don't think any attacks have actually gone into the Chariot yet. So I want to distract this thing. And it's not going to be able to kill, hopefully, both my shooting units in one turn. I was hoping to take it out with my own shooting, and then with one covering fire in the next turn, with whichever unit it doesn't shoot, is my plan. And I think that would be a good trade. Let me check how many points the horrible thing is. It is... Where's it gone? I can't even see it here on the list now. There we go, Brood Terror, 240 points. So it's not actually that expensive. So I get 10 points. So another decent scoring round. You can see the enemy are starting to hop around trying to take the objective control back away from me, which I've been doing quite well on so far. And you can see that the Brood Terror is heading for my shooting units as planned, but hopefully it dies before it gets there. I think it has healed up some wounds though. In the middle, the Rat Ogres have got into the action now. And they reach all the way down there to my Questors at the back. The Knight Judicator takes some shooting damage there. The Storm Coven are in combat with the Rat Ogres as well, so it's going to be an interesting fight. The Rat Ogres against the Questors and the Storm Coven. I say interesting, but clearly there is only one Storm Coven member left. And it looks like I'm down to the final Palador there as well. You can see there's a bit of a manifestation attacking the Knight Judicator. The Chariot's still holding in there though. And I'm thinking at this stage, I probably should have been throwing more units into this central fight rather than spreading out trying to score objectives. I was too concerned that the enemy would be coming back to life. So I wasn't really interested in killing, I was just interested in scoring. So there's now quite a lot of enemies left. It doesn't look like it because they're all compact in the middle, but there are several different units here. We've got a fresh unit of Storm Fiends because they do finally die, of course, in the previous turn, because there was only one of them left on, I think, a single wound. And my opponent gets a big scoring round there by completing a bit of battle tactic. And what was that from? I think it was from the first part of Scouting Force. Then I'm going first in the next round. So, we've got an all-out attack from the Paladors, steaming in there, a fresh unit of 3, drop down, trying to take this area with the Relictor. The Vigilors move on to the objective here, and try and finish off the Brood Terror, but sadly, do not quite finish it. And that is the tail at the moment. You can see the Chariot's now down to 2 wounds. Not quite able to do enough damage, because I've spread myself quite thin across the table, and I've been concerned about rat units popping up. So I've got Taunus the Redeemed not even getting involved in the fighting, and he's actually decent at fighting. So maybe he should have been involved in the fight instead of just guarding an objective for the game. And I do score 8 points, so I'm scoring solidly over the course of the game, but I'm going to lose my ability to stop the enemy scoring now, because you can see there's quite a bit of Skaven power here that's going to start spreading out, and I don't really have the numbers to stop them anymore. So, into Skaven turn, and you can see the Chariot's now dead. The Vigilors are now dead. The Paladors are still up. But a massive scoring round for the Skaven there, because they're able to get rid of the Knight Judicator, which is a battle tactic, and I think they've got the next part of Scouting Force, which is to do with controlling terrain features. So a really big score for them. Turn 5 for me, and I score 8 points because there's not much I can do. All I do is just hold some objectives. Not going to be able to do any of my tactics in this turn. And then into the opponent's turn, all they have to do is cover objectives and score a big 15, and that is enough to win it for the Skaven, unfortunately. So I was leading for a decent chunk of that game. Let me just have a look at the page here for the final score. So the Skaven actually ended up winning by 15 points. And you can see it's pretty much all... It obviously went big in the last 2 turns, but the last 3 turns is when I started to run out of bodies. I had the nice lead there. I was scoring solidly 10 up until here when it got a little bit smaller and allowed the enemy to just leap ahead. So I had a lead, it was going fine. My plan was working, which was to not kill the enemy units too fast and to just score points and tie them up a bit so that they couldn't come back somewhere else. But then eventually my units got ground down and the enemy was still up. And they were then able to fan out and complete their objectives and end up steaming into the lead at the end. So maybe I should have gone big in the middle, dropped down more of my shooting in there, gone big on trying to take out the Screaming Bell perhaps, and thrown everything into the middle, tried to control that area, rather than worrying about what was going on in the corners on the objectives, focus more on killing things. So we shall see, because my army isn't hugely killy unless you combine all of it into one place. So we'll see what I do in the next game then, which is Roiling Roots. And the underdog ability in this one is Tangling Tendrils. So a pair of objectives, and for the rest of the battle round, units, friendly and enemy, have strike last while contesting either of those objectives. So you can be selected to fight and then pile in onto that objective and still fight. You don't have strike last then, because you didn't have it when you were chosen, but you can't start the combat phase on the objective or you will have strike last. So if you're the underdog, you can put strike last onto enemy units, which is a very powerful ability if they're on objectives, and then you can fight them as long as they're not dead in the centre of the objective, where you would have to enter it as well. So you'd also gain strike last. But if they're kind of covering the whole objective, or if they're on the edge, you can probably fight them without touching it as well, or charge them without touching it. And the scoring, standard setup, 5 for one objective, 3 for any pairs, which is the common variant, and then 2 for more than your opponent. And we've got a pair here, so these are actually very close together, this pair of green ones, and then the red ones are further apart. So we've got the same setup in the sky. We've got the Vigilors, the Long Strikes, and 1 unit of Questors. On the table, we've got Taunus the Redeemed is on the table this time, with a Chariot, Knight Judicator, and hanging around on my objective down here, we've got the Storm Coven, we've got the Relictor, we've got the Paladors all down there, and the Questors, the other unit of Questors. And we're up against the Nighthaunt. I think this is the first time I've faced the Nighthaunt's new book. Maybe. And they've changed a little bit now, so their saves aren't quite as good. Their ethereal saves aren't quite as good as they used to be. They do have ward saves though, and they're still quite scary. They don't do they don't work the same way. They don't charge in and then put debuffs onto you and all that kind of nonsense. And their units don't really come back to life now. I can't remember whether they did before, but it seems like something that Ghosts would do. But I think it's a little bit odd the way they do work. The way they've just designed a ghost army just doesn't feel particularly ghostly. Like, if I was designing an army of ghosts, from the ground up I would build it around some kind of mechanic where what would be different from every other army? What if they have like an ethereal state and then a more like material, corporeal state? And each unit can flip between those two states. When they're ethereal, they're much better defensively, they have their ethereal save, they can like fly through enemy units, and they're harder to kill. And when they're in their more physical form, they're better at hitting, which makes sense, and they're better at holding objectives, for example. You would think that would be the basis of an army of ghosts that would be kind of cool and different to all the other armies. And you could vary it unit to unit, which units have what abilities when they're in each form, and I think that would be kind of fun. But that's not how they work at all. So they don't feel especially like a ghost army, I suppose, is the problem. Let me crack open this list of ghosties. We have Lady Alinda, who is right there. We have the Black Coach, which is fairly scary. We have 20 Bladegeist Revenants. We have 2 lots of 8. We've got 8 Glaive Wraith Stalkers and 8 Mirmorn Banshees. And don't ask me to differentiate between all of these units because they're all just ghosts. And that is possibly another issue with Nighthaunt as well. A lot of the units do look similar because they're ghosts. It's kind of the problem that Fire Slayers had as well, where they're all very similar. And then in the next regiment, only 2 drops here, so I'm going to be not able to decide who's going first. In this next regiment, we've got a Knight of Shrouds, 8 Pyregeists, which will be these ones here, obviously, with the flames, that makes sense, 20 Chain Rasps, reinforced, and 2 Dreadblade Harrows, which are this very small cavalry unit there, that look very Lord of the Rings-esque. So, what is my plan? Because the ghosts can actually be killed and they won't come back if you can finish off the unit. So my plan is to finish off whatever I hit. Not leave things alive, because they do have some good ways to bring models back into units. And in terms of scoring, it looks as though the Nighthaunt want to stay quite compact, but the objectives are all across the battlefield here. But it's a little bit deceiving, because if you want to score big points, really, you only have to control quite a small area. You don't need all the objectives. You could control just like that diamond of objectives there, or this diamond here, and you're going to get big points, because you've got one of the pairs, and you'll have more than your opponent. It's not actually a vast area you need to control. We also have these massive buildings in the middle as well, which are going to limit mobility in this area a little bit as well. We've got less of the battlefield to where the point where we're likely to meet in the middle is going to be quite congested. The terrain you can walk around on is generally at the back on this one, or off to the sides. So I am thrust into going first, and the Relictor builds up some prayer points immediately. And let's go back, because that's quite a big thing that's just happened there. So I've quest marked this objective because it's outside my territory, and it's also quite important because it's one of these 2. And this is a pair that's quite easy to obtain because they're very close together. So I want to just hold one of these with both my units of questors, and if the enemy end up like encircling and just don't bother with this objective at all, then they can just go off and do their own thing. But for now, I want to lay down that marker there, so it's difficult for the enemy to get the pair easily from this position. They'll have to spread out all the way across the table if they want to take a pair, unless they want to go through 2 units of questors. So, got the double line of questors. We've got the Paladors, who you can see have been in the fight already, because they steamed into that unit at the front, the big ghosty unit, and killed a load of them, powered through to get away, and then I'm going to be able to teleport them to safety with the Relictor next turn. You can see the Chariot has just gone up onto the objective here. Taunus the Redeemed was actually looking to join in on the charge with the Paladors, but failed, so he's just hanging out there. And I don't think the ghosts really have teleporting particularly either, so I don't have to worry about screening that out. And I've got a good presence on this objective, obviously. I am not too concerned about going after these 2 objectives at all, because there can just be a big blob of ghosts on them that I will never be able to shift unless I put significant resources into it. So if my opponent wants to hold those 2 big blobs of ghosts, I just won't fight those units, and I'll just focus on these 4, because you don't need the whole table. So we'll see if my opponent starts spreading out in this direction. Then I'm going to look at what is spreading out, which units are, and then focus in and decide which ones I want to kill, because I don't want to leave them alive so they can heal, because they're very good at healing, not so good at coming back to life. So 7 points for me, because I do not have a pair, because I don't have this objective. But it's not necessarily the worst thing not to score hugely in the first round. The Black Coach is making a play straight for my Chariot, as you can see there. And all the other ghosts are spreading out, covering objectives. The Black Coach then makes a charge into the Chariot. You can see the faction terrain moving around here as well. And the Black Coach just wipes out the Chariot in 1 round, which is quite impressive. 20 points for the Nighthaunt in the first round for taking loads of objectives. So that's the state of the board. The Chariot is dead. So, realistically, what can I accomplish this turn? I'm going to send the Paladors back in, try and kill a load more ghosts, and then escape again. I'm going to focus everything else on trying to kill the Black Coach, because it's out there on its own. I've got a lot of cheap, multiple small damage units over here. Stormcoven, Night Judicator, Taunus the Redeemed. I can bring the long strikes in. I'm going to use some of these units to try and kill off the Black Coach. It doesn't have that many wounds, so I think I should be able to do that. And then that would give me this area as well. So I would have 3 objectives, which would be equal to the enemy. So one of us is then going to have to try and break that stalemate, which may cause the enemy to split off even more and leave gaps for me to get to the juicy heroes at the back that I need for objective scoring, obviously. And there's not a huge amount of them. I think there's only 2, just the 2 heroes, I think, Alinda and the Knight of Shrouds. I think it's just the 2. So I have to kill one of those if I want to get the first part of one of my battle tactics. And obviously taking an objective off an opponent, I can do that here because I can just go and kill the Black Coach now because it's on its own. So, turn 2 for me. The Vigilors drop in. I put Strike First onto the Paladors, give them Finest Hour so I can hopefully blitz through the ghosts. The Relictor drops in as well and reduces the ward save on a unit, which is a useful role for him. And I whittle them down to 3 ghosts, and I think I've lost just 1 Palador there, so we've really chewed through that unit. Unfortunately, the coach is still alive. So, I shot it with the Storm Coven and with the Night Judicator. You can see the Night Judicator's even put one of his dogs on there. Taunus the Redeemed then shot it, charged into it. I think I may have also used a Lightning Blast magic missile attack on it as well. But it's not dead, and then when it swung, it just killed Taunus in 1 strike. So that Black Coach is doing well. And you can see the long strikes are here as well, so they also shot. So all this shooting, and Taunus the Redeemed shooting, and then charging in, and I did not kill the Black Coach. And obviously I was able to go first as well, because the Paladors had Strike First on them. So, not ideal situation there. The Black Coach is still alive, and it's going to be a menace now, because it's now staring at all my shooting units. I thought that that whole blob of death was going to be more than enough to take down this thing. But, unfortunately, not. But I do get this, because I took an objective off the enemy, which is this one here, because I killed enough of those ghosties. And 13 points, so decent turn. In the enemy turn, I have a Purple Sun countercast to try and give me some protection against the Black Coach, and then it moves in towards me, along with the faction terrain. I then redeploy the long strikes away so the Black Coach can't like drag between multiples of my units and kill them all. And everything is converging on the Paladors, which I'm not too concerned about, because I'll be able to bring back a fresh unit of 3, and it'll put the enemy out there and spread out. And then I'm going to be able to start, because the Questors haven't used their teleports yet, so I can get them bouncing around, trying to take out some of these smaller units on their own, maybe, once they're spread out. You can see the manifestations are going in as well, which isn't very nice. The Black Coach gets into the Night Judicator and the Purple Sun. The Paladors are whittled down to 1, which isn't great because it means I can't bring them back, but on the other hand it is kind of tying these units up a little bit. So they can't redeploy away when I start advancing on them with Questors in the next turn. The Black Coach ends up running away because it doesn't successfully kill anybody. So I should be able to kill it next turn. I've still got all my shooting there. 10 points for the enemy. Into my turn, the Purple Sun charges into the Black Coach, and I put a load of shooting into it, and again did not kill it. The Purple Sun got killed by the Black Coach as well. The one remaining Palador is joined by the Vigilors and the Relictor and the Questors, who all pile into this area to just try and kill all these enemy units. I just threw everything in there, because the Vigilors are actually decent at fighting in close combat. And end up killing loads of stuff. I bring in Questors at the back, teleport the long strikes over there through the portal, shoot at Alinda, send the Questors in there to try and bring her down, because we've got the enemy quite spread out now, and we need to be killing things at this stage, so that's why I've just thrown everything into combat, to just chew through these units, get them killed so they can't bring models back to life. But the Black Coach is still hanging in there, like a stain that just can't be shifted. So, only 8 points there. Still not killed a hero, because Alinda would not drop. And I do not hold all objectives in enemy territory, because I would have to get through to this one. and there's lots of enemy units in the way. Into the enemy turn, the black coach is coming to get me, but it's going to have to choose whether it wants to kill the Judicator, or whether it's going to leave that to these ghosties, and then maybe go for the Storm Coven. And we've got the Pyregeists and Pals are all heading for this central blob here, where I've got lots of units to fight. And up here, you can see I'm not even contesting this area yet, so these ghosts are just hanging out, untroubled. Black Coach decides to go for the Storm Coven. The Questers are joined, or their Lady Alinda is joined by the Pyregeists in the fight against the Questers. And Black Coach wipes out the Storm Coven. So the Black Coach has killed Taunus the Redeemed. It has killed a Purple Sun. It has killed the entire Storm Coven. And it's survived multiple rounds of various shooting attacks. And it's healing as well. So that is very sad. You can see the buffs that are on it as well. So it does crit mortals and no crits if it's contesting an objective. I can't do crits back to it. And not all of my units actually have any crit abilities anyway, so that one's not a huge deal. The Black Coach, 300 points. It's already killed more than that now, and it's still alive, and it's doing very well, sadly. I do manage to clear out all the ghost units from the centre with my tough fighting force I've got in there. And the Questors are still hanging on up there as well with the aid of all-out defence. So, 15 points for the enemy, and I just can't stop them scoring. The battle tactics are Restless Energy and Scouting Force, and I'm not able to pin them down, really. So, I get to go first in round 4. The Black Coach is still hanging in there. I throw everything I've got up towards Alinda and all the other ghosts in this area, including the Vigilors, because I need to just get a hero down. But again, can't kill her, despite long strikes and all these other units charging in. The Questors don't make it far enough to fight her, but they do get to fight these Pyregeists with Finest Hour on them. It would have been better if they got there. And I also don't even take the objective off the enemy, which is embarrassing with the amount of stuff that I'm throwing up there. I just can't kill anything at the moment. So just 8 points again. So I'm just not scoring consistently in this game because I just can't do those battle tactics. Can't take this one objective. Can't get a hero killed. Despite all the hundreds of attacks I've been throwing at them. Into the enemy turn. The Black Coach is going up there to kill my Knight Relictor, who is hanging out on this objective for safety. And does kill it. The long strikes are now fighting against some ghosts, which is something they don't want to be doing. But the Questors do get to ultimately reach Alinda at this stage. I can't remember whether it was a pile-in move or whether it was a countercharge that got them there. But again, they don't kill her anyway. 15 points for the enemy, and I just can't stop the unstoppable ghost tide of scoring. My turn 5, and there's nothing I can do really. I still don't manage to kill Alinda, despite her being surrounded by all my units. And enemy turn, not much going on, but still 20 points, because the conditions are just being met for the battle tactics, left and right. And if we look at the situation, not great. The main issue was that the Black Coach failed to die and Lady Alinda failed to die. If those two pieces drop with all the attacks I was throwing at them, suddenly it looks a lot healthier because I'm scoring tactics and I'm stopping the enemy from going around and killing half my army down here as well, who could then be helping clear out all the ghosts, because there's not actually that many ghosts left when you look at the table here. There's very little left in that unit. There's Alinda, there's the other hero, I think. There is the Black Coach, and not a lot else. I don't know whether I ended up fighting that big unit of ghosts. No, I think they were just down here. And that's all they did. You can see I did have Questors hanging out on their objective at the end. But yeah, I just couldn't get through Alinda, couldn't get through anything, and ends up being quite a big loss, even though I was in it in the fight all the way through. I was just not scoring at the same rate the enemy was because I just couldn't finish off those units that would have given me objectives, would have given me points for killing heroes. Nightmarish. So what could I have done differently there? Maybe, instead of thinking that... Well, I thought what I threw at the Black Coach was overkill anyway. So maybe I could have just thrown even more at it, including the Vigilors maybe, and let the Paladors just keep doing hit and run in the middle and not worry too much about the Paladors killing ghosts in the middle. Just focus on taking down the Black Coach with everything, and then throw everything up at the top towards Alinda. Oh well, maybe next time. So, next battle is cyclic shifts. And the way this one works is the underdog bonus is pick a pair of objectives, and then those two objectives cannot be controlled for this battle round. So that is a very strong ability there. So if you don't want to be vulnerable to that, then two of the objectives that you want will be these corner objectives here, because they are not a pair, so they can't be shut down. So if you hold these two and the enemy is the underdog, then those two are going to be immune to being shut down. They can only shut down the green pair or the red pair. So 5 points if you control one objective, 3 if you control 2 or more, and 2 if you control more than your opponent. So you don't even get bonus points in this one for controlling a pair. So you really don't necessarily want to be controlling pairs on this one, because if you're winning, the enemy can just turn them off suddenly. So the ideal scoring would be one, like this one up here, and then one green, one red, and this one. So like those 4 would be perfect, because then if the enemy shut down one pair, they're also shutting down one of theirs. So there's not much they can do. What you don't want to do is just hold, for example, 2 greens and a red, and let the enemy have the others, because then they're the underdog, they'll just turn off the greens and you're stuck. And that's for the entire battle round as well, that those cannot be controlled. And we're against the lovely, bright, vibrant lizards of the Seraphon. So let me crack open this list here. Just scrolling down. In round 3. There we go. So, let's have a look at the enemy forces, and then we'll go through my thinking and strategy there. There's a lot of big dinos in this list, which gives me some comfort, which I'll tell you about in a moment. So, there is the Scourge of Gairan Saurus Old Blood on Carnosaur, which I think is this one with the more impressive setup on the top. There is a unit of Agrodon Lancers, which are the Saurus Cavalry. And they are reinforced, so that's quite a strong, hard-hitting unit. There is a Bastillodon with the Solar Engine, which I think is the shooting one over here. Then in the 2nd Regiment, there is a Skink Oracle on Troglodon, which is somewhere. That's going to be that one here, isn't it, surely? Then there's a Bastillodon with the Ark of Sotek, which is the close combat-y one. There's a Skink Oracle on Troglodon, the... Oh, that might be the Stegodon looking one. No, that's the Engine of the Gods. There's a Skink Oracle and a Skink Starseer. What is the Troglodon? The T-Rex with antenna. It's become invisible to me for some reason. It's just blending in amongst all the bright colours. Oh, this one here. That'll be it. It just looks very similar to this one, doesn't it? So that'll be the Troglodon. Then there is Terra Wings, which are starting off elsewhere, not on the table. Starseer, which is the one here. Engine of the Gods, which is the Stegodon. And Hunters of Huanchi with Starstone Bowlers, which are also off the table, I think. Or if they're not off the table, they're out there somewhere. And there is the Realm Shaper engine. So, hard-hitting cavalry, lots of big monsters. The Bastillodons have a 2+ save. Let's go back to the wide shot here. Okay, there are the Terra Wings, and the Hunters are hiding off somewhere ready to ambush themselves onto the table. I am fairly confident in this one. My army is quite good at bringing down big stuff that can't be obscured, big monsters, especially big hero monsters, and there are a couple of those in here. So, long strikes, for example, get extra rend against heroes. I've got lots of shooting, and any big monster that has between, let's say, 12 and 20 wounds, I think I can bring down one of those in each turn. Maybe just with shooting, if you include the Paladors in that. Because they can shoot, they could charge, they can shoot and charge, they can charge then shoot again. So lots of shooting. I think I can bring some of these big monsters down. What issues do I see? I don't want to really get charged by cavalry because they're going to do extra damage or have extra rend or something. You know, when you're facing cavalry, that's generally what to expect. My cavalry obviously are a bit different. Their bonus is when they charge, they get to shoot you again. This particular brand of Palador. And I'm concerned about the 2+ save on the Bastiladons because I don't have a lot of rend in the army. I've got a lot of rend on certain units, but not against Bastiladons. I don't have any rend 3 at all, so they're always going to have a good save against whatever I throw at them. So maybe I'll focus on killing everything else. The issue with that on this mission is that even if I've killed everything else and there are Bastiladons still alive, if they're positioned on objectives and I'm in the lead, other objectives can be turned off. So I may have to deal with them at some point. But I'm going to kill the things I think I can kill first and then maybe worry about them later. I'm not going to put too much into them unless I feel like I've got them in a really good position where I can heavily focus on them without disadvantaging the rest of the plan. So we've got the chariot on the objective. Got Paladors ready to roll, and we are both 3 drops, I think. So I believe I end up with the choice of going first or second in this one, based on the roll-off. Taunus the Redeemed is in the sky, along with the usual suspects of the Vigilors, the Long Strikes, and 1 unit of Questors. And you can see that my opponent has the battle tactic of intercept and recover, so I've put some treasure on my units. I've gone for the Questors that are on the table. I've gone for the Storm Coven because they're not going to be going near the enemy. And have I put it on the chariot, maybe? Yeah, chariot as well. So with the treasure, you either want to put it on units that you don't think will be killed, which is not that easy. You want to put it on units that you want the enemy to kill because it's a waste of their time. So chasing down a chariot isn't necessarily the easiest thing. It can run away and it's only 120 points. So if it doesn't participate in the game, then it's not that big of a deal for me because it can just hold objectives and hide and run away and preserve the treasure. And Questors are quite tough to shift. They've got a lot of wounds. They can potentially get a ward save if they get onto their quest-marked objective. And the Storm Coven aren't going to be going too close to the enemy anyway. So they're going to be quite tricky to kill, hopefully. And the other thing with intercept and recover, it kind of puts power into your opponent's hand. It's a good one to have for certain armies if you've got mobility and you can reach whatever unit they pick, but they can dictate which units you want to kill for your battle tactics. And also, if you take doubles, then the treasure can just be removed as well, so that can be tricky. So I give away the first turn, let my opponent go first, because I don't think the Seraphon can accomplish much in turn 1, and it maybe will encourage them to spread out. You can see we've also got 2 giant buildings in the middle here that are going to limit the mobility of units in the centre of the table if the fight is taking place there. And the enemy do spread out a little bit onto the objectives, a bit of a purple sun just to protect the heroes at the back there as well from being hit, potentially. I do have landing spaces though. It is quite a spread out opening from the Seraphon. 8 points scored. And I believe that is a sword from the Nighthaunt that snapped off. And I couldn't find the Nighthaunt player when I spotted this, and then I forgot about it after that. So that sword might still be in the TSN arena. Into my turn, and I bring down some Questors, or I teleport the treasure ones over to this side, and I'm going to try and charge into the skink on the Troglodon, which isn't the easiest thing to do, fight a big monster, but it's the quest marked objective, so if I get on that they have a ward save and I'm tying up a big monster over there. The other questors just drop down on this side. They're going to try and take the objective off of the flyers. And then if something like a Bastiladon comes over here to fight the questors, then I wouldn't be too disappointed with that. I think the Bastiladons are more expensive than questors. Let me check. Yeah, they are. They're at least 30 points more. So I think that would be a decent fight to take this away from the fight, because I don't want these 2+ save things in the middle. I throw the Paladors in, and this is the first horrendous mistake of the game here. I was thinking that if I throw them in, I can kill some of the cavalry, then power through away from them. But I was forgetting the profile of this cavalry. They actually have the same number of wounds. I thought they were 4-wound cavalry. But maybe I'm thinking of the other Seraphon cavalry. What do the skink ones have? Is it 3 or 4 wounds on them? But I was thinking that they were just 4 wounds and I was 5, so I would be able to power through against them and get away. But I'm now stuck there. Not necessarily the worst thing, but it's not what I was intending. I was intending to power through afterwards. You can see I dropped down the Vigilors to do a bit of shooting as well, and I've put some damage onto the Carnosaur there with my shooting, which is nice. Chariot's not gone anywhere. Judicator holding this objective. Stormcoven have moved up a bit just so they could do their shooting. And you can see that the Paladors were obviously intended to power through back here and then be teleported to safety by the Relictor. But unfortunately, that's not an option now. So had I known I couldn't power through, I would have put the Relictor more like here, so I could teleport them from this position, rather than having to rely on them powering through to get away. So I score 8 points as well. And into the enemy turn, you can see that they decide we're going to just throw everything into your Paladors, throw all these big scary monsters in, try and kill you, but I do have all that defense against at least one of them, which I think I used on the Carnosaur because I thought that was the scariest. I also tied up the Bastiladon that had a shooting attack in close combat as well, you'll notice, in the previous turn with my pile-in. I intentionally did that because I didn't want it to be shooting me. And it's not quite as good at fighting as the other one, I think. It doesn't have the million snake attacks. And this one decides it's not going to go for the questors at all, it's coming back this way, because it actually has quite a good rampage, which can affect nearby units, I think. So, you can see the skink on the Troglodon isn't interested in fighting the questors down there, but the Purple Sun maybe is. And I'm actually feeling really good about the board control. If you just look at this situation here, all the lizards are in this very tight area, and my army has taken on a much bigger area. So they're pushed way back, and I can now push onto both of these objectives quite easily, I think. And there's not that much there to threaten me, because all the tough lizard stuff is in the middle. So, 8 points for the lizards in that turn 2. And onto my turn 2. And the Paladors, you can see, they retreat. I think I retreated from combat and just did some shooting instead, because I didn't want to just stay in the fight and die. So I think I retreated and then just fired. You can see I've put the Long Strikes and the Stormcoven and the Vigilors all here that were all blasting away at the enemy. And I had the choice of charging the Paladors into something as well after this. But I think I maybe chose not to. Taunus the Redeemed drops in and kills the Terror Wings, is it? Yeah, that's it. Kills them, takes the corner objective. Questors aren't quite there yet. The other Questors just move on to their quest marked objective. Not necessary to charge anyone because they're just hanging out there and they're going to score big points. And look at this board control now. Controlling pretty much the entire table apart from this small area. The enemy did drop some shackles in there. And I scored 20 points that round because, who did I kill? I killed the Carnosaur, which was the hero. So I think I retreated, shot the Carnosaur, and then charged into it and finished it off in close combat. Or maybe the shooting finished it off, I can't remember. But it's definitely been killed anyway. So that was a hero killed. I took an objective off the enemy. I don't think I hold this objective yet. I think the enemy have still got this objective with the Bastiladon. I think I've only got 2 Paladors left there, so which isn't enough to hold it. So next turn, maybe I'll try and get every objective in enemy territory. Wouldn't that be nice? I would have to kill a lot of stuff though. Enemy turn 3, so the priority is staying where it is. And my opponent turns off this pair of objectives. So turns off this one and that one. Chariot and the Questor's quest marked objective are no longer active. So that is actually interesting, because let me double check the wording here. It doesn't actually deactivate the objective. I'm going to look at the Questor's war scroll for a second, because I want to make sure that it doesn't disable their ability. So while this unit is contesting a quest marked objective, okay, I think the way the scenario is worded is that the objective cannot be controlled this turn, so it can be contested, so it doesn't affect the Questor's ward save ability. But it has been turned off now. So in the middle you can see everyone is converging on the Paladors, and my opponent, I think, is possibly giving up on scoring prematurely here. I don't think all these units need to be attacking the Paladors here. I think that these two could go off and fight the Questors maybe, even though I've got a ward save. And the Bastiladon could go that way. Use the Purple Sun to tie up the Paladors. The Paladors, on average, probably don't kill a Purple Sun in one round. And I think maybe you could do more scoring by killing stuff rather than just sending this one over here on its own. I think maybe it could have some support. But I think the enemy are very focused in on killing the Paladors. I think they could be spreading out, because the issue is the amount of territory I'm taking up is vast. And it's going to be difficult. Even with turning off the objectives, I've still got these two and this one currently. So the Paladors do get surrounded and killed by everything, as you can imagine. The Bastiladon, which is the close combat one, does kill off Taunus the Redeemed, sadly. But, again, it's still a very small area the lizards are occupying here. So even with the objectives turned off, it's still only 2 objectives each. So my opponent scores a nice juicy 13 points for getting a bit of battle tactic, which I think was probably killing one of my heroes or taking an objective off me. I can't remember which one. Because the treasure units haven't been killed, because there's one here. The Storm Coven have teleported all the way down here, or have moved all the way down here to safety because they've got treasure, and the Questors over there have got treasure as well, so they're still safe. So, into my round 3. And I just drop everything over here. So I've got, let's see who was already here. The Long Strikes move back and teleport through the teleportal to get over there. The Knight Judicator is already there, so moves up. And the, let's see, the Vigilors are still down there. So I've used my Questor's teleporter to drop everything in on this area to protect my treasure over here, and to throw everything into the Troglodon and try and kill it. And I think I take it out with... No, I don't. There it is. Didn't quite kill it. I think I was trying to kill that... No, is that the cavalry? Yeah, I did kill the Troglodon with shooting. So the Long Strikes, Judicator, and the various javelins. So I didn't even need to charge it in the end to kill it. So I was actually planning to charge Questors maybe, and Paladors definitely. It's a fresh unit of 3. Into the Troglodon, but I just killed it with shooting and then couldn't reach anything else. So I'm really dug in on an area that isn't currently scoring, but I'm now in a position, I've got a really tough defensive blob here, and if the enemy want to get to the treasure, it's tough to break through all this lot, and it's just going well, I think, is a way of putting it. Vigilors are still just there shooting. I'm not too worried about them, because if the enemy are going after the Vigilors, that means they're not targeting the treasure. This chariot has done nothing, it's just sitting there waiting because it's got treasure on it. I do have a Purple Sun, which you can see I deployed over here when I cast it, because I didn't want the enemy hunters dropping in too close to my treasure units. And I do complete the second part of this, which is to have more friendly units in neutral territory than enemy units, or have no enemy units in friendly territory. And you can see, got loads of units into the neutral strip. If there is a strip on this one, I can't remember. But either way, there's no enemy units down here either. 13 points. Another good score. Into the enemy turn 4. And the Engine of the Gods, the last cavalry, Saurus, and everything is just trying to get stuck in over here now, because they need to fight their way through something to score points. And they are going to get bogged down, though, because the Questors have got a ward save. It's going to be tough to crack through there. 10 points picked up. And into my turn 4. I managed to obliterate everything over here. Finest Hour on the remaining Palador. Charges down here onto the Hunters that had popped up in this corner. Stormcoven also shot them a bit. And the enemy are down to 2 Bastiladons and a Starseer. So it's not looking good for them. But because of the scoring mechanic, the underdog mechanic in this mission, it's difficult to run away with it. Unless you hold very specific combinations of objectives. Because this pair has been turned off, and I'm never going to hold this pair in a million years, because I would have to kill the Bastiladon, which I think is too difficult. Because my force over here now is not actually that fast, because I needed to clear them out. 8 points, round 4. I do get first crack at round 5, and I decide that I can just get stuck in, prevent the enemy from scoring any more points, and I don't think I could have done my battle tactics anyway, because it would have required killing both Bastiladons, which is obviously impossible from this position. So I took the double, and got stuck in, trying to take out the Bastiladon. Didn't, obviously, but did my best. I did some good damage to it, actually, but did not kill it. And then in the enemy turn, not much is going to happen, as you'd imagine. And that's going to be the end. 8 points there for the enemy as well. So you can see the scoring, once the underdog ability kicks in, it evens out the scoring as you go towards the end, potentially, based on the objective setup, because it's difficult to hold a lot of objectives and more than your opponent if they turn off the right combo. So, that is a juicy win for the Stormcast, and what was the final score? Let me see here. It was 57 to 47, so even though it felt like it was in my control pretty much all the way through the game, because of the scoring and the underdog mechanic, that kept it very close all the way to the end still, scoring-wise. So it's quite a powerful underdog mechanic in that one. Next round, we go into the Surge of Slaughter, into round 4, and I'm going to crack open the enemy list here. So, Surge of Slaughter, underdog bonus, Defense of the Realm. Pick a pair of objectives and add 1 to the rend characteristic of friendly units' melee weapons while they're contesting either of those objectives, which is potentially quite a powerful one if you're the underdog. So, 5 victory points if you control 1 objective, 3 for any pair, and 2 if you control more. So, very standard scoring there. It's Be'lakor. His finger points. He points at a unit, and for 1 turn, they probably don't do a lot. It's a very powerful ability. He's a very powerful model, but I am 100% sure I'm going to murder Be'lakor in this game. He's a flying monster. There's nowhere he can hide. I've got teleports. I've got shooting units that can drop in next to him. Fire lots of shots at him, and I think he's got like an ethereal save, Be'lakor, but I have a lot of low quality attacks from things like the Paladors that don't really care about rend anyway. Questors as well have a lot of attacks, so I'm 100% sure Be'lakor is going to die. I'm less certain about the other units in this list, so let's have a look. There is Be'lakor, who's 460 points, a reinforced Chaos Warrior unit, which is over here on this objective, and that is 400 points of Chaos Warriors there, with the Dread Banner, so you can't use commands when you're in combat with them. The next regiment, there's a Gaunt Summoner who's hanging out with the Chaos Warriors there, and a reinforced Chaos Chosen blob, which is waiting to come in. So that is 560 points of Fight Twice horribleness, and there is a combo coming up, which I will talk about as it happens as well, involving them. There's a Chaos Lord and a unit of 5 Chaos Knights. Just a small little unit of Chaos Knights. Not too worried about them. That's the kind of unit I'm very confident I can deal with, along with Be'lakor. But because of Be'lakor's ability, I think my army composition is actually very well suited to deal with him. Because it's very obvious that he would pick the Paladors as the unit to probably not do anything. The way it works is every time they want to do anything in the turn, like move or charge or fight or shoot or anything, on a 3-up, they don't do it. So very likely they do nothing that turn. But my army isn't reliant on the Paladors, I would say. It's the only unit that's big enough to be a worthy target for the ability. Everything else is multiple small units of damage. If you're facing Mega Gargants, every unit is 500 points, and you just point at them, and you're shutting down a quarter of their army, whichever one you pick. With my army, if you don't pick the Paladors, then it's kind of a waste. And it's the other units that may be a big threat to Be'lakor anyway. It's the units that can come in from teleporting, and thus can't be chosen as his finger points at them ability. So, like, Long Strikes and the Night Judicator, and the Storm Coven with their shooting as well. None of those are likely to be chosen by Be'lakor. And quest marked objective right behind Be'lakor. And I'll go back to the wide shot and tell you why I picked that one, actually. So, I picked this one. Jacob says, nice looking Slaves of Darkness army. It is a very nice army, actually. I think some of the bases aren't quite finished, but it is very cool. Be'lakor is a very cool model. I picked this one because if I pick this one, a blob of 20 Chaos Warriors would probably quite happily spend the game just sitting on this objective, and I'm never going to shift them. So the Questors would not be able to get their ward save ever. Now, it's sometimes worth doing that if you want to get a very expensive unit doing nothing, but on this mission, I think that objective is probably not a bad place to put a unit of Chaos Warriors anyway. Just looking at the setup here. Maybe, and they may just choose to abandon it and decide, actually, yeah, you can have your quest marked objective, I'm just not going to fight you, I've not got enough units, I'm just going to focus on everything else, and then the Questors are out there, and if they want to keep their ward save, it means not fighting anything. So, my choice though is this one, because I don't think Be'lakor is going to stay there. That would be madness. He's going to get out there and do some fighting. And if the Knights stay back, I don't like their chances because the Questors would teleport in near them. And then I think the Questors would probably beat those Chaos Knights, especially 2 units of Questors. If I get the charge in with the Questors, I would certainly beat the Chaos Knights, I think. Especially with it being the quest marked objective, if I get onto it and have my ward save. I think with the ward save, Questors do beat Chaos Knights. Even if the Chaos Knights charge, I think I probably still beat them if I have my ward save. Christian is in the house, as is Jacob. Good evening. I do see we've got quite a few viewers, actually, who haven't commented yet. I imagine when people are watching these things, it's probably more like listening, because it's still images, you don't have to be staring at the screen the whole time, so people are probably painting as well, aren't they? While kind of watching and looking up every time there's a new picture. So, my setup. Storm Coven, of course, starting on an objective whenever they can so they get their double cast. The Paladors at the back. The enemy is 3 drops, and I think the enemy won the roll, so we're going to be able to decide who goes first. I think... Or was it me? You know what? I'm not sure. I feel like maybe I won it and gave it away to the enemy. I think that's what happened, because my reasoning is I've put my units slightly further back so that they're not really under huge threat. It's not a massive threat projection, apart from something we're about to find out in a minute. So I think I gave away the first turn, because I didn't think Be'lakor would be able to reach me in the first turn. And my thinking is, with Be'lakor's pointy finger ability, when he stops a unit doing anything, if there's a chance of you getting the double... Does it last through the double turn, Be'lakor's pointy finger? I think it actually does, but I don't. If it does, I didn't know that at the time when I was choosing this strategy. So my thinking was I would still be able to do something with the unit before the enemy can retaliate, because I've got the chance of a double if I go second. But I think I was told Be'lakor's ability does actually last through a double turn. I think it lasts until the start of the next turn of the enemy. If that's the case, let me know, because I don't feel like doing my own research. In the sky, we've got Long Strikes, Taunus the Redeemed, and the Vigilors. Okay. I have also had to put treasure down on my units again. So I've chosen Questors again. The Knight Relictor. He's not a bad choice for it because he's got a 2/3 chance of coming back to life the first time you kill him, so you may have to kill him twice to pick up that treasure, which is annoying if it's time sensitive as well. If you're on the last couple of turns and he's the one that you're trying to kill, and he just comes back to life and you have to kill him the next turn, you may be losing out on victory points there. And the Storm Coven because they don't plan to go near the enemy. So, what's all this then in the enemy first turn? You'll notice that this big unit of Chaos Chosen are right next to me. That is because they have a special combo with the Summoner, who has the Realm Warper's Twist rune. And it's some bizarre combo, so he has an ability where he can set up a unit that's coming in onto the table, and they can be unnaturally close to the enemy, something like 7 inches away. And they can have a mark as well, where they're... I think they can be given the mark of Slanesh. Is it Slanesh? Where you can roll 3 dice and pick the 2 highest for a charge. So you actually have a very large threat projection with this unit of Chosen popping up. And that concerned me, because I didn't fully understand or grasp that as I was deploying, I think. It's really long range on it. It's like I think it's like 3 dice, and then you pick a point within a certain distance of that, and that's where you can set up a unit from, something like that. Jacob says, looks like Be'lakor is until the start of your next turn. Got Lydia in the chat as well. Good evening. So, yeah, Be'lakor, quite a scary thing, but I think my army is suited to murder him. Chosen, very close. So I redeploy my Storm Coven, because I don't want them getting immediately killed, and I roll a 6 on the redeploy, which is weird, because I thought redeploy was just by default a 1 on the dice. That's what happens usually when I redeploy. But on this occasion it's a 6, and it could actually save them. But if you look back at the original wide shot here, so the Chosen, when they come in here. I think probably what would have been a better position for them is here. So I can only redeploy 1 unit, and then you're definitely going to have something to charge, I think, then. Or maybe even here, because you can get into units that I really care about there. Even if you only charge into the Judicator, you could then maybe pile in and start hitting the Paladors. So I think, though, the reasoning is that my opponent was maybe concerned about my covering fire from possibly the Paladors. I suppose they could do some decent covering fire. They've got a lot of attacks. Or the Night Judicator, and was maybe concerned about that, so wanted to pop up in terrain to be obscured, so I couldn't use covering fire on them. I think that was the reasoning for popping up in the terrain. So you can understand the logic behind that, but I think being more aggressive with them would have been scarier, and I would have found it more difficult to get away from them, because that lucky redeploy means it's going to be quite a tricky charge now. So let's go back to where we were. The Chaos Knights move up a bit as well. There's a purple sun been thrown up, Be'lakor in the middle, ready to strike. The Gaunt Summoner hanging out there. And the Chosen fail their charge, which is a big deal, because now I've got the next turn. I've got the potential for a double turn because I'm going second. And even if I've got a unit that isn't going to be allowed to do anything, I've still got the tools to do some serious damage. So, the Paladors are obviously going to be chosen by Be'lakor. He's going to point his finger at them. It's the obvious choice. So, what am I going to do this turn? I'm going to try and get the first part of one of my battle tactics by killing the Gaunt Summoner, and I plan to do that with the Chariot. As you can see, he's just out in the open there. So if I get in there, charge him, do mortal wounds, and then power through away from him, and do more mortal wounds, I think that would kill the Gaunt Summoner quite happily there. As long as I don't get Be'lakor like counter-charging into me. But I'm hopeful that the command points are going to be spent before that point, because I'm going to be doing lots of shooting. There's going to be all-out defense that wants to be used. There's going to be redeploys probably that want to be used to stop me charging things, and there's only 3 command points left, it looks like. So that's 2 that are usual choices. Countercharge is very expensive, and you have to have it in mind that you want to do it, and budget accordingly, I think. The Paladors, because they're going to have Be'lakor's finger pointing at them, they're just going to get into a position where they're not going to be murdered by Chosen or Be'lakor, so they're going to go this way. The Knights are way less scary than these two, and also the big blob of Chaos Warriors. And if they're like paralysed for a turn, they don't want to be here, they want to be over here where it's safe. Then, I'm going to throw some other units and try and kill the knights, probably. It's not really the time to go for Be'lakor, I think, because I can't put everything into him at the moment, because I want to put the chariot into the Gaunt Summoner to kill that, and the Paladors are going to have the finger pointed at them. So maybe it's a time to put more stuff into the knights and deal with them. There's also the possibility of putting Questors at the back here, because this objective has been abandoned, and if that draws any of these units back, that is a big deal, because how many units are there? There's knights, 2 big scary blobs, and Be'lakor, and the other thing is a caster. Is it just 5 units there? Let me just double check on the list here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it looks like there. Oh yeah, there's a Chaos Lord as well, who is hanging out somewhere. Can't remember where he is. Okay, 12 points scored by the enemy. Because one of the... Was one of the tactics completed already? Wrathful Cycles, I can't even remember what that is, to be honest. Into my turn. So, I throw out some shackles. Do I? No. Those aren't my shackles. Those are enemy shackles, aren't they? Are they mine? Surely I can recognise my own shackles. I think those are enemy shackles. And they've been thrown in. Yeah, they are. It's weird because it caught me out here, because I think that's exactly the same colour scheme that my shackles have, with like the golden shackly bit and the silver chains, but the basing is definitely not mine. So that was put onto my Storm Coven, and they move away. Obviously, it was also put onto the chariot that was also hanging out with them, but that's moved away now. They've taken some damage, so they've moved away from the shackles. The chariot goes in with Finest Hour. Not something you'll often see me do, but it is enough to murder the Gaunt Summoner. I don't think I even had to power through, I think I just killed it outright. The Paladors move up to the left to where it's a bit safer. Taunus the Redeemed popped up to try and charge the knights as well. They redeploy away. We've got Questors with the treasure popping up on this objective. The reason for using the treasure unit is because that's now way more likely to entice the enemy to come back, because it's an objective and it's got treasure on it. So if anything comes back here, it's just away from the main fighting area, not backing up other units. And it's still going to be tough. Like the knights, I don't think would win this fight now, because I've got my ward save up. So I think the Questors have a good chance of dealing with them now. And Taunus the Redeemed is there to act as backup when that fight starts anyway. Yeah, I've got the Knight Judicator here, who, while also doing some shooting, was also just put there as a bit of a Be'lakor screen, so that if Be'lakor wants to come this way, he's likely to get held up there, because he's not going to be able to land like here, or even there. He's going to have to stop more like here, and then the charge is unlikely to reach the Paladors. And I've left them in a position where if Be'lakor does come this way, I've got the option of maybe trying to countercharge them. To countercharge him, potentially. I've hidden my treasure-wielding Knight Relictor down by my teleport chamber as well. And I've left a lot of stuff in the sky. I've not brought them down yet, because I'm waiting for that one perfect opportunity. So I score 20 points because I took an objective off the enemy, which was that one at the top. And I killed an enemy hero, so a massive first round for the Stormcast. Turn 2 goes to the vile Be'lakor Slaves to Darkness forces, and if I'd won the roll, would I have given away the turn here? Because it would have stopped the finger being pointed at the Paladors, and I don't know what the enemy can really accomplish this turn, because I don't think the Chaos Knights are going to be able to defeat my Paladors or the Questors on the quest-marked objective. I don't think Be'lakor is going to be able to do anything too significant. He could kill a Knight Judicator or a Chariot. The Chosen are quite far away. I can redeploy again to get away from them. They're slow. I can countercast Shackles onto them, potentially. So I don't know whether I would have taken the double here, because I'm playing it quite cautious, as you can tell. I'm just waiting for that moment when it's right to strike at Be'lakor. And I also want the enemy to spread out, as you can see, because there's not many enemy units. I don't want them supporting each other. Turn 2 for the enemy. And you can see the chariot, I think it has strike last cast on it, which is what that's representing here. I use my prayer ability on the Knight Relictor and teleport the Paladors all the way to the back line here. You can see where I'd set them up. They're wholly within 12 of him. So I didn't want them being attacked. I want the enemy to go and attack my Questors, so I teleported the Paladors here just to make it not a choice anymore. The Knights are going to have to go for the Questors or fight nothing. So it's a really powerful ability, being able to automatically do a prayer in your opponent's turn without rolling a dice. Anything that doesn't involve dice roll is always very strong. Unless it's no dice roll and it just makes you lose the game, that's obviously not strong. Be'lakor has got his eye on the Judicator. The Knights are going for the Questors, as expected, and the Chosen get into the chariot along with the Chaos Lord and the Purple Sun. Be'lakor gets into the Judicator, Knights into the Questors. Well, that was unexpected, wasn't it? Not really. The chariot dies from the Chosen. Be'lakor kills the Knight Judicator. But it's like a game of chess. We've sacrificed some sacrificial pieces, and now we're in a position to strike back. Because Be'lakor is out on his own here. I'm going to be able to throw Paladors at him, and anything else I want to drop in to target him is quite safe if I put it here. Anywhere down here. That's quite far away from the Chosen, miles away from the Chaos Warriors, miles away from the Knights. So I think I've got quite a good defensive position here to launch an attack on Be'lakor. Taunus the Redeemed is going to go and help the Questors against the Chaos Knights at the top. And if we can get Be'lakor down, I can then start looking at the Chosen. But Be'lakor's the one I really want. He's the most mobile. Everything else is going to be quite slow, especially now the Knights have been bogged down there. So, 10 points for the enemy, turn 2 for me, and what a surprise, Be'lakor is dead. So, long strikes, Vigilors, the Knight Relictor reducing his ward save, the Storm Coven shooting, the Javelin shooting, the charge, the Javelins shooting again, the fighting, and that is enough ultimately to take down Be'lakor. I think it may have just been, I don't think I needed all of that to kill him. Or he may have been down to his last wound and then I charged in and killed him, something like that. And we've got some more Questors down here as well. At the top, Taunus the Redeemed gets into the fight there, and I think I'm just going to win this fight. It might be quite slow, because the Chaos Knights are fairly robust, as you can imagine. And the enemy manifestations have gone now because we've got rid of all the spellcasters. And we've just got two very big, slow, plodding enemy infantry units that are very scary. But 10-point round for me, but the most important thing was just killing Be'lakor. No battle tactics secured this turn. The other ones are going to be fairly tricky, though. We'll see. Actually, the neutral territory one, or no enemy units in friendly territory, is definitely possible, but I'm going to have to kill the Chosen. And at this point, I get the double turn and I decide to take it. So from this position, if I don't take the double, what happens? I think the Chosen slowly walk towards me, I redeploy away, and then they hope that they charge me successfully. I feel like that risk is too big, that they do get in when I've got the opportunity for a double, and I think it would be crushing, because I've got all of this still alive, all of this damage, and while it's still here, I can now focus all of that into the Chosen. And I think that is worth it. Because if I can take them out, we're left with just some very slow Chaos Warriors, because this is pretty much irrelevant, this fight up here. That's going to rumble on. They're not getting away. So let's go all in and try and kill the Chosen. I think we've got to do it. And this is the result. All my shooting, I bring Questors in to try and charge them as well. Paladors go in, shoot after they charge, they fight. The Chosen obviously get to fight twice, once per game. And they did that here, which is why the Paladors are down to just 2. The Chaos Knights are down to 2 up there as well. So this is going well. And look at that. Just 3 Chosen left. All the shooting and the Paladors all got in there. Used a bit of all-out defense to try and keep the Paladors alive. So the Chosen are now locked down there for the turn as well, for the enemy turn. And they redeployed these Chaos Warriors actually to get them a bit closer, but they're so slow I don't know if they're going to be able to have a great impact because my forces are very spread out. So 10 points there, but again a massive crippling blow to the enemy there. Christian says, well played, continually keeping the ponderous but dangerous enemy units having to make tough choices between killing and scoring. Yes, if the enemy has very few units, I think this Stormcast list is very good at forcing them to spread out and then focusing on whichever one you want to kill at any given time. I've got lots of units, lots of mobility, lots of teleports, lots of deep striking, and that is a tough matchup for very slow big infantry units. If they don't have any kind of support that can give them like a 3-dice charge or a teleport, which we saw almost came off immediately at the start of the game when I wasn't really fully understanding how close the Chosen could get to me. I'm pretty sure my opponent did actually explain it to me, but it just didn't sink in, I think. And turn 3 for the enemy, so let's see what they can do. And they decide to send the Chaos Warriors up here. Now, from this position, what would you do with your Chaos Warriors? Would you send them into the middle, where there's Paladors, and try and free up the 3 Chosen? Or would you go up here and try and turn the tide here and free up the Chaos Knights? I don't honestly know, because if you move them into the middle, you're also moving them into range of all my shooting units. And maybe that would be the start of their undoing. But also, you're in a position where you can affect more of the battlefield, so maybe I would be tempted to just send them in, try and start a big fight in the middle, maybe try and tag the Questors and the Paladors at the same time and try and just kill everything here. So you've got the murder superiority, and then go from there. I don't think it would be enough to win from this position, but I think I would be tempted to do that rather than going up here and trying to turn the tide of this fight, which I think is mostly irrelevant. It's relevant to my battle tactics because I am going to need to hold, I think, all objectives in enemy territory, and I can't remember, I think that's actually these 3. So I don't think I'm going to get that, because wherever these Chaos Warriors go, I'm not holding. So, Chaos Warriors gunning for the Questors at the top. Chosen knocked down another Palador, but there is one alive on 1 wound, which in some ways is good for me, because it means the Chosen can't redeploy away when I move towards them in a minute. They can't redeploy away from my shooting, but on the other hand, it means I can't bring back any fresh Paladors yet. Unless I retreat out of combat and just intentionally die, which is often tempting, because then you can bring back another unit, but that would then allow them to redeploy. Chaos Warriors into the Questors. You can see the ward save is doing good work here, they're holding on, and Taunus the Redeemed is down to 6 wounds. He's chewing through these knights quite well. He's actually a good defensive character, old Taunus, because putting -1 to hit on an enemy unit is quite strong. It's not something that Stormcast have a great deal of access to that I can think of. I think Krondis has got that as a spell, and we have a -1 to wound spell, but I don't think there's too much -1 to hit stuff. So that's quite a good ability on Taunus the Redeemed. I think he's actually quite good. 8 wounds is slightly more than your average for a Stormcast hero. That's like Bastion level wounds. He doesn't have a ward save, but he's very mobile. He's got Ren 2 on his attacks, which is good. He's got crit 2 hits on all his attacks as well. So I think he's quite good. At his current point level, which I think is 150, is it? All Taunus the Redeemed. Let me have a double check here. Yeah, 150. I think that's quite good value. Yeah, he came down in 20 points, which is what allowed me, along with the Chariot's point reduction, it allowed me to bring the Chariot into the list. So I quite like him, and if you're not taking anyone else who can unlock Vanguard units, which is still good, even if you're not running Paladors, often you'll still want to take at least 1 unit of Long Strikes. So they're very good still. And if you've got something else that just isn't unlocked by the other characters you want to bring, I think he's a good choice. I think he is the cheapest unit that can take anything in his regiment, which is, it would be a good role in itself, but the fact I'm actually finding his abilities are quite good as well. So my opponent is only able to score 7 points that round, and it's looking pretty bleak for the Slaves to Darkness here, isn't it? I get the first crack at round 4. The Questors with the treasure who didn't die from the Chaos Warriors, which is a big deal now because I'm just able to teleport away from them and keep the treasure miles away from them. So the Questors, that's another reason they're a great treasure unit, because even if they get pinned down, it's 18 wounds on a 3+ save, difficult to take out in one turn. If you don't kill them in one turn, if they've still got their teleport, they can just teleport away from you. So, quite a good treasure unit. Then all my shooting and the other unit of Questors get in there, wipe out the Chosen, which is going to give me a battle tactic for taking enemy units out of friendly territory. And I'm moving my units into corners now as well to set up another battle tactic. Or I may have already had them there in the last turn to set it up, or maybe I'm setting it up for next turn. But the Questors are gone from there, so Taunus the Redeemed is on his own up there now. And he is actually alive. And there we go, I get some battle tactic nuggets here, and we see a human's shoe there. And 15 points for the round. Good scoring into the enemy turn. Taunus the Redeemed is killed by the Chaos Warriors, and that's about all that's happening there. 5 points. And then into my turn, I'm able to get units into the corners, which I set up in the previous turn. You can see I had the Vigilors there, I had the Relictor there, and I've got the Questors here. I don't think I actually did I actually move them for the photo? Yeah, I think I just shuffled them up into the corner a bit. So they do manage that, and I didn't make a charge into the Chaos Warriors. I tried to because it's worth a go. If you can kill them, why not? And 15 points again. Enemy turn, again just 5 points. Chaos Warriors decide it's pointless chasing anyone down because it's not going to score them any points anyway. So a nice juicy win for the Stormcast. And the final score was 70 points to 39. So I think that was quite a tough matchup for the Slaves to Darkness, to be honest. I think what they needed to do was support the units in combat. But there was only like 4 fighting units. There's 5 objectives to fight over. I've got a lot of units. If you don't spread out and you're all in one place, then I'm just going to be able to teleport around and score points. And it's a tricky one. I would have been tempted, probably, to have the maybe 2 fighting areas. You've got Be'lakor, the Knights, the Chosen, and the Chaos Warriors. At times, they were all on their own. I would have been tempted to run them round in 2 blobs of 2 so they can support each other. And at least you're covering some ground with them then. It would still be tricky, I think, against all this mobile and teleportation. But I think the only reason I was able to kill them so swiftly is because they were all spread out. So I was able to focus down on them without being in danger. Christian says, Shoe, +6 move over difficult terrain, 4++ Lego save, definitely. I've actually stepped on things, not necessarily Lego, but like little stones while wearing slippers, and they offer very little protection against such things. So I don't think they would help much against Lego. You definitely want to be wearing sturdy shoes. So, pictures of the armies during lunch on day 2 as they were laid out for the coolest army voting. We've got some nice Sylvaneth here. Very cool. I like the wolf heads on these. Not sure what those are from. Someone will know. We have got some horrible Soul Blight. Very grisly looking. And skeletal. We have got some very nice Gits. Now, this army, first glance you think, wow, that's amazing. How is this not going to scoop up all the prizes? But I think this is definitely one of the best painted armies I've seen in a while. When you zoom in really close, you can see where the edge highlights are. But I think middle distance, which is kind of, I think if you look in like a Games Workshop store cabinet, I think that's the kind of painting they do. So from a medium distance, it looks absolutely amazing. It still looks good close up, but from a distance, all the colours really work, all the highlighting really works well. I think that's the GW style in general. But the one thing missing on this army is that some of the units aren't actually quite finished, which is why I don't think it was in the awards. So I don't think these trolls are finished, and there's a little bit of unfinished backpack stuff going on with the Gobberpalooza down here. Otherwise, this army definitely would have got my vote. I think these trolls, maybe a couple in this one, aren't quite finished yet. You can see the highlighting on this one at the front, and the other ones at the back aren't quite done yet. So I'm looking forward to seeing this army when it is complete. Definitely my kind of army. Very colourful, nice highlights. Look at this. Very nice indeed. Then we've got some horrible Soul Blight again. Very skeletal. Now, I am only... In fact, I'm not even sure at all what this army is. I don't know if this is Soul Blight. It's got a boat. Is it Deepkin? What's that? What is the boat? Is that a black coach? But it's kind of a Vampire Coast sort of army. But it's also fishy. Is it Deepkin? I didn't play against it, so I'm not 100% sure. It's cool anyway. We've got some more Soul Blight. This one's very nice. This creature in particular, look at that face. Leon says, seems like Deepkin because of the base sizes. It may very well be. We've got 5 Bloodthirsters in a list, which apparently you can do now with the latest points adjustments, including this massive one from Forge World with obscenely thick wings. Then we've got some more Khorne with just the measly 2 Bloodthirsters, a load of Bloodletters. I like the old lava basing here. Is that one... that Scarbrand, perhaps? These guys looking very cool as well. We've got Skaven. Very ratty, and more... oh, not more. This is the first one of these we've seen, actually. Is some nice Iron Jaws with Kragnos, the old Kragmeister, with his tiny little face. Then we have got some Slaves to Darkness, is that? I am not 100% sure. It's very cool anyway. Very nice painting on them, and very nice theme. I'm going to guess they are Slaves to Darkness, but I don't know 100% what all the models are representing. If anyone knows, let me know. I could just look. You know what? I'm going to look. Let me look here, because it's even got the player's name, so I could just pull up their list now. Slaves to Darkness. Let's see what everything is, because this is a very cool army. There's Abraxia in there, which is... what else we got? There's Gorebeast Chariots, which are going to be these then, aren't they? So maybe the most impressive looking Gorebeast Chariots you'll ever see. And what else have we got? Chaos Sorcerer Lord, Chaos Chosen, Chaos Knights Reinforced. Yeah, that makes sense. We've got Chaos Knights, Chaos Chosen, that'll be the Chosen. And those will be some regular Chaos Warriors. Very nice. What's this thing then? Is that Abraxia there? Or is Abraxia 350 points? Is Abraxia this or that? Because that's going to be the Sorcerer Lord there, I presume. Can't even remember if I've seen Abraxia lately. There seems to be more units on here. Maybe, because there's a Kronspine there. Anyway, moving on. We've seen enough. We've got some more Skaven. Some more Iron Jaws. No Kragnos in this one. And just because you roughly put your army onto a tray doesn't mean I'm not going to take a picture of them. We have got what appears to be some cruel boys. The Seraphon, which we saw earlier, nice and colourful, and into the final game. So, linked ley lines. So the way this one works is that you want to hold objectives in a line. So across the middle line there, or across the middle line there. And that's how you're going to score maximum points by doing that. And then the underdog bonus is all around manifestations. If you have manifestations, they will have strike first, which is actually pretty good when you've got the purple sun, potentially, getting to go first. It's not bad at all. And it's against Iron Jaws with Kragnos. So let me pull up that list now, if I can find it here. In round 5. There we go. So we've got Kragnos, 580 points, and whenever I'm facing Kragnos with Stormcast, I always think, you know what, I'm going to get really good value out of murdering him. Because he's so expensive, and I think Stormcast have a really easy time killing him. It's not because he's not good, it's because we've got shooting units that can just drop down near him, like long strikes, that are just really good at killing him. And I think I've got the tools, so I'm figuring out with this army as the tournament goes on, that I need to put everything into what I'm trying to kill. If I'm trying to take down a unit, I need to just drop in all my shooting, throw the paladors in there, just focus down on something. It's harder to do with some armies where they've got multiple small units, but if they've got something big and powerful, just throw everything at it at the same time. And that's how this army works, because you've got the Vigilors giving everyone else +1 to hit, you've got the Relictor reducing enemy ward saves, you've got all the small shooting units, who are all benefiting from the Vigilors +1 to hit, assuming 1 wound goes through. You've got the Paladors, who are benefiting from it in multiple phases, because they're attacking in 3 different phases, which is quite impressive. And I think the extra rend from the long strikes on a big hero. I don't like Kragnos' chances of making it out of the game, but again, there are some things here that I think are going to be more of a struggle, because we also have a reinforced unit of Gore Grunters, big scary cavalry unit. We have got a Tusk Boss on Moor Grunter, who is this one, I think, with the dudes hanging off the side of the pig. Then there is a War Chanter, who is hanging out by the tower. Reinforced Ard Boys, a big scary blob of wounds, much like Chaos Warriors. Then there's the Scourge of Gairan Weird Brute Wreckers, which are this unit here, who are a scary fighting unit, not as resilient as the Ard Boys, but they do hit hard. And there is a regular Moor Grunter there. So, this one, with the guys on the side, and Kragnos, are very good targets to be shot down. This one, slightly less, because I won't get the extra hero rend from the long strikes. But I'm feeling pretty good, because there's some big stuff I can kill. The only worries for me are just the big orc units rather than the big monsters. And because Kragnos gives units a 3 dice charge, they do project a long threat range. And my army would prefer not to be charged if possible. And it is 3 drops, is it? 2 drops, there we go. So I'm not going to be able to choose who goes first. So you can see I've not deployed as far forward as I can, a little bit further back. And I've put treasure onto the Questors, the Storm Coven, and the Chariot in this game. In the sky we've got Taunus, all the shooting, and another unit of Questors. So, I'm going first. My opponent gives away the first turn. So, I've bunkered down the double Questors onto the quest marked objective, which is not an uncommon sight in my games, and if anyone wants to come and deal with them, you want to deal with all those attacks, because you can't fight the front unit without the back unit being able to hit you. So you're going to be facing a lot of Questor attacks, and they're all getting a ward save, so it's just a very, very tough thing to crack that. Paladors go into the Ard Boys and do some reasonable damage. We're going for hit and run because I've got the Relictor there to teleport them away. The reason the Relictor is so close is because I want to teleport the Paladors away and prevent Kragnos from just charging through the gap. So I want to make sure there's a solid wall, so the Purple Sun there as well, and Taunus the Redeemed. I don't want Kragnos, enemy turn 1, to just steam straight through here and get to, like, the Storm Coven and eat a treasure unit quite easily. What I want to happen is that he comes this way and then has to decide whether he wants to fight Questors, who have a ward save, or whether he wants to eat one of these less appetizing morsels here. So the Paladors are just going to be teleported away in the enemy turn. 8 points. Enemy turn 1. Paladors get teleported away. And the enemy units start moving up. The Gore... yeah, it's the Gore Grunters. They have to decide whether they want to fight the Questors now, because that's not going to be an easy fight there. I would like my 2 units of Questors chance with the ward save against a cavalry unit like that. This guy over here, this is the Gore Grunter Gouger. This is actually making its way. It had an extra like 10-inch move at the start of the turn, I think, once per game. So that's going after my chariot, which obviously has treasure on it. But the reason the chariot is out here on its own and not hugging the back corner is because I wanted to try and tempt one of these powerful things out of the middle, not supporting Kragnos. So hopefully I can draw it over here and then redeploy and it'll fail its charge is the plan. So I do redeploy, but he makes the charge anyway, so the chariot is actually in combat now. The Ard boys go into the Relictor, and the Tusk boss and the Wreckers go into Taunus the Redeemed. Kragnos is actually being very patient for a change. And you can understand why Kragnos would want to do that when you look at my list. You don't want Kragnos being here. I think that would be terrible. If Kragnos was just stuck here fighting the Relictor, who may come back to life when he kills him, then I would be able to drop in all my shooting units here behind the safety net of the Questors and then throw the Paladors in, and Kragnos would just instantly be dead. So I think holding him back this turn was a good move, because there's nothing really juicy that he can hit that he can just whomp. Now, I still can drop in other things to fight him, or shoot him back here, for example, but if I drop in the terrain, I might be out of range because it's obscuring. If I drop in up here, he could redeploy away a bit, and I might not be able to see him through this piece of terrain. I can't remember what this terrain is. I think it'll block line of sight, though. And also, they'd be unsupported, because I don't think the Paladors are going to easily be able to get all the way and snake round here, because the Ard boys are in the way. So I think Kragnos is right to hang back. Taunus is dead, the Relictor is not dead. Purple Sun takes some wounds. Chariot takes some wounds but does not die, which is good. And the fact that it's live on 4 wounds is an extra bonus, because if it was down to 3, then if I want to retreat from combat, I would take potentially 3 wounds. It's going to be D3. And if you die, Mr. Chariot, you're going to be giving away this treasure, which we don't want. So I'm going to be able to escape from combat without dying now, which is a big deal. Okay, next turn goes to me. Because if my opponent had won the roll-off and took the double, what can you really do in this position? I don't have my shooting units down yet, so you can't fight them. I would delete the treasure from the chariot if you take the double, which you don't want because you're about to kill it. And you would have to then come and try and get the Storm Coven, who are guarded by the Paladors, which maybe isn't the juiciest place for just one monster. You could try and get through the gap here, but I don't think the Purple Sun allows anything to pass through that gap, unless you can try and remove it, which you can. And then I could maybe try and counter cast some shackles in a position that would be annoying for you to deal with, because you can't land on them. So it could be tricky taking the double. But anyway, I get the turn, and I throw in the Paladors and the Questors into the Gore Grunters, which are up here. So the Paladors have gone round that way. Questors, 1 unit of Questors in there, another unit of Questors into the Ard boys. So we're not bringing down all the shooting necessarily yet. Let's have a look what does come down though. So the Questors are tailing back, just towing onto the objective so they keep their ward save, and they're fighting the Ard boys with the Relictor and the Purple Sun. The Relictor, I think, dies but comes back to life on 1 wound this turn. The long strikes and the Knight Judicator pop down as well to help out with the shooting, and I'm confident in doing that because I think they're fairly safe from Kragnos getting through here, because he can't move through this gap because he'll come into the combat range of the Questors, so he's going to have to charge from about here. And then he'll probably hit one of these two units and then find it difficult to pile in far enough to reach these two, is my thinking. The Chariot retreats away and suffers 1 wound. And now, the Chariot is on 3 wounds. If the enemy wants to come and chase me, I'll be able to redeploy again. And if I roll high enough, you could end up with a 7, 8 or 9 inch charge onto it, which is by no means guaranteed with Kragnos so far away, because he's the one that gives you the 3 dice charge. So, the enemy powerful units are quite spread out. And I've got most of my power in this area here. So I'm able to focus in on these 2 units at the moment, which is how I'm winning these fights. But obviously, Kragnos is about to come in. These 2 units are about to come in. So we'll see if they can do enough. And then hopefully next turn is going to be when I kill Kragnos, because he surely is going to fight me now, otherwise everything else is going to start getting killed. 6 points, but I'm not too concerned yet about the scoring because I'm being very wary of the enemy counterattack and I'm just trying to block gaps. So, into the enemy turn, obviously the, what's it even called again? The Maw Grunter. There's Gore Grunters and Maw Grunters. So the Maw Grunter is chasing after the Chariot. The Relictor is dead. I redeploy away with a 5, which is going to make that an 8-inch charge, which is not easy. We've got the big Maw Grunter gets into the Vigilors to try and take this objective off me, which is a battle tactic. And this one actually fails its 8-inch charge, so the Chariot survives another turn, which is quite big. The Wreckers and the Ardboys are fighting the Questors, but I've still got my ward save, just towing onto this objective still. Kragnos makes the charge in between the 2 Questor units, and he's going to start fighting them. And the unit of Questors, even though I all-out defense them and they have a 5+ ward save, Kragnos just wipes them out in 1 round. So that's not very friendly, and that was the treasure unit as well. So I thought they'd survive 1 round, to be honest, and then teleport away. That was what I was hoping for, but Kragnos is a beast, and if you don't pass your ward saves, you die. Paladors continue fighting the Gore Grunter, and somehow the big Maw Grunter, the Tusk boss, fails to kill a single Vigilor, which is hilarious, and then the Vigilors actually damage him back, so he doesn't even take the objective. So that denies a battle tactic. So, here we are going into the next round. This is surely going to be the end of Kragnos, because I've got very powerful shooting units here. I've got the Paladors that can retreat from combat and still shoot and charge. And again, we look at that number 4. When you have 4 wounds, retreating from combat is much less risky because one of your models is not dying, because you can only take up to 3. So 4 wounds, if you see that on an enemy unit, think that they could be retreating and not losing any models. So they're going to retreat, shoot Kragnos, charge Kragnos, everyone else is going to shoot him, we're going to try and reduce his ward save, which he might ignore, because I think he ignores things on a 3+, old Kragmeister. Chariot's going to run away further from this, and we'll see. It's tempting to just throw the Chariot into combat, but I don't want to lose its treasure. So, enemy big turn there for stealing my treasure, but I have a feeling I'm going to start catching up now, because turn 3, and Kragnos is dead. Yeah, retreated, fired at him with everything, and he's dead. Questors are still hanging on here as well against the Ardboys and the Wreckers, but we've got down Kragnos with all the shooting. I think it actually took everything to bring him down. All this shooting, all the javelins, charge, the attacks, and it came down to the mount attacks actually that finished him off. Took his final wound. You can see the Knight Judicators throwing a dog at him. The Chariot teleports through my teleporter because it only specifies non-monster units. So the Chariot goes through the teleporter, which I had to run to get through, and teleports up here, up where it's safe. I bring in 3 Questors, who then I can bring them in combat with this tower already, so there's no risk of failing a charge. and the shaman goes away from me because I want to try and kill a hero for my tactic. But I killed Kragnos anyway, but this was just the backup. He runs away, I charge into the tower, take the objective anyway, so that's going to be a tactic. So I'm going to get a tactic for Kragnos and a tactic for taking an objective off the enemy. So part 1, in turn 3 I've got 2 of my tactics. This is where we're starting to score big now. And we've got down Kragnos as well. So, 18 points. Turn 3 for the enemy. You can see I teleport my long strikes with my Relictor, because they're right here. I want to keep them safe from this cavalry unit here. I don't want them charging in and then piling in and fighting them. So I teleport them away with a bit of translocation down into the corner where it's a bit safer next to the teleport chamber, so they can teleport again next turn. And we've got 2 giant pigs looking at the Vigilors now, so I don't like my chances. Oh yeah, last turn I retreated out of combat with the Vigilors as well, and didn't even lose one of them, so I was able to hold on to the objective still. The Relictor dies from the last Gore Grunter, as you'd expect, and the pigs murder the Vigilors, as you'd expect. Shaman moves on to the objective, and there's some ability that means that the Questors have reduced control score. I think it may have been a prayer. So that objective is actually taken back from me. And that's the situation now. So, I don't like this. This is a blob of death down here. 2 big scary pigs that I don't know if I'm going to bother trying to kill. I'm just going to try and score points and clear out these units, I think. So if I can kill those 2, that means the enemy is down. If I can kill these 3 and him, if I can kill all these 4 heavily whittled down units, then the enemy is down to just 2 models. So I think I can win from that position quite handily. So, turn 4 for me. I go in and kill those units. I've got my chariot on an objective. Long strikes over there. Kill the cavalry with the Knight Judicator. Long strikes teleported there. Storm Coven's still hiding in the corner. Questors, Paladors in the middle. The Shaman is still alive though. So 20 points, round 4. Good turn for me there. And by the way, I think one of my turns I reduced the dice after I took a picture because we realised the scoring was wrong, by the way, if you noticed any discrepancies as we were going through this. So, enemy turn 4 coming up, and what's going to happen here? Well, do you go for this big blob of death in the middle, Paladors, Questors, Purple Sun, or do you just try and skirt around and maybe try and get some of the treasure units? So you can see I've completed the next steps of both of those tactics. So, this guy, this Moor Grunter, makes a long charge into my faction terrain and is just able to pile in and get within range of the Storm Coven. And I think we were kind of running out of time at this stage of the game as well, so we were kind of just talking through a few non-essential bits. And I think they could have redeployed, but I don't think it would have saved them actually, because I think the charge was far enough. I think this is just the charge move here, not the pile-in. So even if I redeployed a bit further into the corner, it could have still piled in 3 inches and hit me still, because of the faction terrain. So the terrain actually lets me down there, so their treasure might get picked up. He did make a very high charge roll, I think. The other one's going after the long strikes because they're obviously dangerous. They do use their covering fire and do some good damage to him. And the Shaman is going to get killed. The Storm Coven do get killed, giving up some treasure though. And the long strikes get killed. So, from this position, going into round 5, it's very close, I think. Let's have a look. I believe there's only like 2 points in it. I think my opponent's maybe up by 2 points. So, the Purple Sun's actually been doing well for me because of the manifestation rules in this battle plan where it gets strike first if you're the underdog. That's actually been doing well for me. If I get the turn, the Paladors will retreat away from the Shaman and probably finish off this thing. The Knight Judicator will turn around and shoot this piggy. And I'll move on to all the objectives, take all the objectives, complete some more battle tactics, and it would just be a win. if my opponent goes next, then it would be a double turn, and he's not far enough behind to be able to take an unpunished double, so wouldn't be able to score any tactics. Would be able to pick up some objective points by getting onto as many objectives as possible, and could potentially kill my chariots, which wouldn't be worth any treasure though, because you can't score tactics when you take the double. So, it's an interesting one, because my opponent does actually win the priority roll. Even though I use my re-roll, I have 2 chances to try and roll a 4, and can't do it. I rolled it like a 1 and then a 3, I think. So, even with the re-roll, so my opponent is then weighing up whether it's worth taking the double and trying to secure objective points, or I think that's a chance to get a draw is by doing that. If you were to give me the turn, then there's a very high risk that I just wipe out both pigs and just win the game. There is also a chance, if I fail to kill the pigs, and then you're allowed to do battle tactics, that the pigs could actually win the game. So it's a high risk strategy, giving me the turn, but I think it's the only way to probably win the game. Taking the double is probably a higher chance of trying to get a draw. So my opponent does take the turn and spreads out onto objectives, and is going to try and kill the Knight Judicator, and scores 8 points, so he's up by 10. So if I can secure 1 battle tactic in my final round and hold enough objectives to get the maximum, then I will win the game. However, despite killing pigs and getting onto objectives, I'm not able to secure a battle tactic because I don't have enough units. I only have the chariot, the paladors, and the questors. Purple Sun doesn't count. And there were enough objectives that I didn't own, because my opponent had been able to tag them via having a double turn, because all my units were kind of compact in the middle. I was able to tag the rest of the objectives. And I just didn't have enough units to contest them all and kill the pig up here. So unfortunately, I don't think there was a way that I could get more than 10 points with just 3 units in this turn. I couldn't complete my battle tactics. So I did get the 10 points, and that does turn it into a draw. And obviously ridiculously close. You can look at the scoring dice. My opponent built up a little bit of a lead at the start, but then once I killed Kragnos and started killing things, it just steamrolled in these 2 turns. I was able to get some big points there. And then right at the end, that final priority roll ended up being crucial, and that choice of taking the double turn paid off. Being able to tag enough objectives so that I just didn't have enough units to score maximum points and battle tactics at the end means that we finished on 60 points each. So, 2 wins, 2 losses, and a draw. Perfectly even. And I think after the first 2 games, I figured out a bit more of how I should be playing the list. Because you'll have noticed in the final 3 games, I did a lot more of like a full-on all eggs in one basket type strike. Drop down all the shooting, throw everything at one big target and kill it. But you can't do that against every list, because not all lists have a mega unit that you can do that to. If they're multiple small units, it doesn't really work. So this Stormcast list, I don't know whether anyone else would have run this exact list before. I feel like it's quite unique, but I like it actually. I might persist with it for a little bit. I might make some tweaks, because in some instances it does lack killing power. Not so much lacking it if you consolidate all of it into one place and just blast something into oblivion, but over the course of a game, against lots of wounds, many of which can maybe come back to life, I think that's where it struggles. And it doesn't really have any super duper hammer units in the list. The Paladors, I would not consider that, unless everything else goes in their favour. If the Vigilors soften up a unit for them and give them +1 to hit, which, although unfortunately doesn't affect companion weapons, which is a lot of their damage. If you can get a Purple Sun in there to improve their mediocre rend, but I don't think for 480 points Paladors are really a hammer unit. They're a bit more utility than that, though. They are a very strong unit. They've got a lot of speed. They can get around wherever they need to. You don't have to put them in danger, and they can still reach the front lines with a 20-inch move. and then a shoot, and then a charge, and then another shoot, and then a fight, and then a retreat or a power through. So I do like them in that role, but they're not a traditional mega damage dealing hammer like reinforced Grand Hammer Annihilators, for example. And there's Quest to Soulsworn definitely aren't hammers, but they were doing the bulk of the fighting in many of these games. And I like the amount of shooting in here. I like the small units of shooting because it makes all-out defense difficult, because you can only all-out defense against, for example, the long strikes, which means you can't also use it against the Vigilors and the Paladors and the Knight Judicator and Taunus the Redeemed and the Soulsworn, not Soulsworn, the Stormcoven. So lots of small shooting attacks that you can't defend as well as you could if it was just one really big shooting unit that was targeting you. So I like the small shooting units. I think that's a good part of the list. As important as the Questors are to this list, because they provide bodies and they've got a good number of wounds in there, they don't die very easily, they're very robust. Maybe 2 of them means the army is lacking a bit in killing power. Maybe you can get more killing power for 200 points than a unit of Questors. What do we think? Do we think there's another unit out there that you can spend 200 points on that will do more damage than a unit of Quest to Soulsworn? Do we need 2 of those? Would 1 be enough? Because there's a slight element of diminishing returns, because you can still only have 1 quest-marked objective no matter how many units you take. It's the fact that they're not very expensive, only 200 points. For 18 wounds, 3 plus save, 5 plus ward if you get on the objective, lots of attacks, and a teleport, which adds to the mobility of the army as well. So anything that comes in to replace them would reduce the mobility unless it's something fast, and you're not going to get a fast hammer for 200 points, presumably. So let me know what you think in the comments anyway, because I found this very interesting list and I really only got to grips with it midway through the tournament, realising that actually you do need to just make a big decisive blow. You can't play too cautiously with it. You've got to just throw everything in, because it needs everything. It needs all those little shooting attacks to combine to do some good damage. So I'd like to see what people think about this list, what you think about the enemy lists as well, and the games, the strategies, and let me know if you think anything could be brought into this list or replaced that would complement what I've already got here. And maybe push it to that next level, let me know. Dylan says, good showing, interesting list. Christian says, strength 10, dex 16, con 14 kind of deal. Yes, it's a very mobile list. It's got a good number of wounds in it, but not the killiest of lists. So maybe it does need tweaking. Maybe I can take elements of it into other lists as well. And big dragons are always tempting to go back to, but they are very expensive. And some of the big dragon lists I've run, especially with 2 dragons, you just run out of units. And especially now that all-out defense only affects the attacks of 1 unit, I think you are incentivized to take multiple small units for that reason, especially because Stormcast don't need to use all-out attack when we've got the Vigilors, so we still get to get the +1 to hit on all shooting units if we're targeting the same thing. And then if something else wants to shoot at a different unit, that can maybe use all-out attack. So multiple small shooting units is good, I think, specifically for Stormcast. Leon says, big dragons will get nuked if you run into Sky Dwarves. Well, that's another thing to mention actually, because I'm going to have Sky Dwarves at some point. I've had the infantry painted for the last 8 years, I just need to paint the big Ironclad. I've had the crew on the painting table for a while. I've been slowly chipping away at them with the paintbrush, getting to work on them, among other projects, because I do play 1,000 different game systems. So they will be on the table, hopefully within the next few... How many months do we think I can paint an Ironclad and probably a few more Caradron Overlords? So I want to get them on the table. I'm not too bothered about getting them on the table while they were super powerful, because that's always like the first few weeks after something comes out, it's always a bit too good, and then they tone it down. I was never going to have them ready for that, but that's not why I like the army anyway. And Leon says, nice, join the fleet. Yes, I will definitely be joining the fleet. So, what is coming up next? I've got my little event calendar here. I've got 2 old world events, actually, because one of them is just 500 points. And then the other one is a full 2,000 points after that. And then I was signed up for the AoS event in late November, but I've switched around my ticket, so I'm going to the one at the end of October now, so that's not too long, not too far away. And then I've also got more Old World and some Dead Zone lined up as well over the next couple of months. So going to see more battle reports obviously as well. Plenty of spice coming towards your computers and your mobile devices, however you're consuming this content. Okay, it is time to wrap this one up. So don't forget to like and subscribe and all that good stuff, and check out all the links in the old description down there, including the various social media shenanigans. And if you want me to buy more Stormcast and keep attending more tournaments and buying tournament tickets and spending hours probing every crevice of all my games, then why not pledge your entire life savings in the Patreon or the PayPal links down below as well? Because what were you going to do with it anyway? You're probably just going to squander it. So why not tell me to buy some Stormcast with it? Or buy twice as many tournament tickets? Because if I'm only going to like 3 tournaments a month, surely I can be filling in another one of those slots and going to the full 4. Okay. Don't forget, obviously, to leave some comments. Let me know what you thought about all this madness. And all that remains to be said is, other than thanks for watching, is good night out there, whatever you are.